nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Quicker than I thought. I know. Good job. Next up is approval of minutes of November 6th, 2013. Ask for a motion to approve the minutes of November 6th, 2013.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of November 6, 2013.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Of course there is. On page 2, under the monthly update, the second to last line, a little concerned about employment expense line. I think that's to the unemployment expense line?
Yes. Also, under Mass Certificate of Academic Excellence, under the Superintendent's Report section, this award will be given to the high school students, this award is given to high school students who have distinguished themselves. I have a request on the National Merit Scholarship Awards and the John and Abigail Adams Scholarships. Is the list, the list is attached?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Because I knew you were gonna ask, so I said get it in there.
Sorry, okay. And then, on page 2, I believe Mrs. Conley offered to possibly include the Guatemala trip in the program of studies.
Yes.
So I think that's important to capture. And then under the motion by Mrs. Estino to approve travel to Antigua, Guatemala during April vacation 2015 with fine details to be worked out.
I'm sorry, what was that?
The top of the page.
At the top of the page here,
Page 2.
with fine details to be worked out. It's just the way it's worded is a little awkward. Under enrollment update, a member of the audience asked about children of faculty enrolling in the district and when the teachers would be informed. I think that that's important to capture also. Under the section on block scheduling, it says, the study group was in the newsletter that goes out by Blackboard Connect, and a few parents, actually 11 parents responded, so that's significantly more than a few, and 6 faculty members expressed interest. There are 5 parents and 4 faculty members on the study group, and Mrs. Conley explained the reasons why these parents and faculty members were chosen. Also, just a note, Mrs. McGoldrick, you were gonna share with us the perceived strengths and weaknesses document. We're gonna circulate it,
Yes.
and, we lost track of that. And monthly update, we've already covered. Okay,
The
there was,
document from the school council?
Yes.
from the block scheduling study.
From the block schedule study group.
Yes.
That which came, from a branch from the school council, right? From the high school council?
No,
No.
it's not,
It just came from what?
No, there's a block study scheduling,
Yes.
scheduling study group.
Put
That's
together
separate from
by
the school
the
committee.
principal's
And
office.
yeah. Okay, and then there were a couple of other items that were not captured that I think are important. The first was under the budget discussion where, there was a discussion of adding kindergarten salaries back into the budget and why that was important. Also, there was a discussion about the gap in the acting town manager's suggested budget number and what was requested by the schools. And how large that gap was. And that precipitated taking the kindergarten salaries out. So, just a brief touch point would be great in these minutes.
From last year.
Exactly. And then we also had a discussion on the new math program, its implementation, and the support being provided for parents to help them help their students. And I think that that's important to capture also. Okay, and then under communications, Mrs. Estino called for Facilities, Capital Projects, Technology, Alternative Energy Committee Subcommittee meeting with Mrs. McGoldrick and Mr. DeGennaro, and we left out, and the superintendent. And that's it for what I have now. It was kind of difficult to follow because we jumped out of order on some of these items, so hopefully I didn't miss anything.
Do you wanna send revised minutes for the next one then?
Sure.
We can approve them.
Sure, I can do that.
Alright, then, why don't we, tentatively, recommendation that I wish to tentatively approve the meeting minutes of November sixth with an addendum to be revised later.
Sure.
So I guess we have a vote on it then? In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. And next up, superintendent's report.
Yeah, I have a question. It said, just one more thing, Mary, were you the, only one who went to the mass conference this year?
No,
I
No,
went-
besides the
Yeah.
superintendent?
Yes.
There was no one else on the school board?
No.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know.
Okay. All right, so tonight we have, I think a number of the folks from the wrestling team with us, and I am going to have them introduce themselves, and I know Mrs. Conley is also going to help. But we have a couple of very interesting things about the wrestling team, and I think, Mr. Onyebane, weren't you on the wrestling team in high school?
I was.
I just
Thank
need
you
to
for
point
bringing
that out to all
that
these young men.
up.
And let's see how you did and compared to how they did. What, can I ask what weight class you were in? Is that permissible?
That is not permissible.
Never mind. Because I understand that somebody has to place
Turning red.
first in the state based on their weight class.
I did not place first in the state.
Neither did I. Anyway,
15 more minutes.
so I'm going to have Mrs. Conley help, but before I do, I want you to know that, I wanna quickly read a letter to you from Mr. Ford based on, some information concerning this particular wrestling team. They're quite unique, and I think that they are, absolutely a five-star team, and they really add to the repertoire of the school. But Mr. Ford wrote to the MIAA wrestling team, concerning the MIAA Wrestling Team Sportsmanship Award nomination to the MIAA, and what he said is, "Hello, gentlemen, I'm writing you to nominate the Cohasset Middle High School Wrestling Team for the MIAA Team Sportsmanship Award. The Cohasset Skippers are led by Coach Torrance Sweeney, who is in his 30th year of coaching at Cohasset." And Mr. Sweeney is not here tonight. He has, had something get in his way. He's had a death in his family, so he could not join us. But he has built a first-class program that always represents the school and the community in an outstanding way. Whether we're hosting our own invitational tournament, which we have held for the past 23 years, or hosting the state finals or sectional finals as we are this year, Coach Sweeney, the Cohasset Wrestling Boosters, and the wrestlers themselves all work tirelessly to be terrific hosts and make sure that everyone who comes to Cohasset leaves with a positive experience. I also have noted numerous times how Coach Sweeney always does the right thing by not taking points for forfeits when a match is already in hand, and always doing the right thing for kids. He is so well respected by his students and parents. When the Wrestling Boosters raised enough money to purchase a new $2,000 wrestling mat light for the Cohasset High School gym, they made the, I'm reading what, light for the Cohasset gym that made the donation in honor of, they made the donation in honor of Coach Sweeney, excuse me, there's a typo here. A couple of weeks ago, our superintendent of schools received an email from a person who witnessed an act of sportsmanship by one of Coach Sweeney's wrestlers. This letter brought tremendous pride and appreciation to the entire CMHS community, but frankly, when I heard about it, the only thing, I was not surprised. Our coach and wrestlers impress me every day in what they do, and this is just an example of what happens when you and your team value sportsmanship, strong character, and respect for your opponent. So the email that I received, and Mr. Ford was unaware I received this email until I passed it on to him. We had a parent write to me from another town who wasn't even part of our having a wrestling match with our team at the time, said, "I know most of the emails you receive with the subject line sportsmanship is usually bad, and That's probably correct. Well, in this case, I am writing you all to inform you of a display of sportsmanship that is of the highest level. I was at the wrestling quad meet 125-14 in Norton, Mass. My son wrestles for another town. I witnessed a young man from Dayton Rehoboth, who obviously had some disabilities, wrestle a young man from Cohasset. The wrestler from Cohasset could have easily beaten the wrestler from Dayton Rehoboth, but that's not what happened. He wrestled him at his level, gave him the match of his life, and in the end, the young man from Dayton Rehoboth pinned the wrestler from Cohasset for the win in the third period. The smile on the face of the young man from Dayton Rehoboth lit up the gym, and both wrestlers got a standing ovation. I am so proud there is still great sportsmanship out there, and proud to have witnessed it. I am a former MIAA EMSOA soccer official. So glad I never did any of this. And a soccer instructor with USSF. So I have seen my fair share of good and bad sportsmanship. This was special. Please thank the young man from Cohasset for his outstanding show of sportsmanship, and I highly recommend MIAA take note of this. So I wanted to read this to you because Mr. Ford sent this in, and so I'm gonna ask Mrs. Conley, first of all, to come and collect this.
Oh, more of them?
So that this can be shared.
More? I didn't know I was such a good sport, I was gonna get away.
So as a result, I have to say that the MIAA has presented us with the Sportsmanship Award Wrestling Division III to the Cohasset Middle High School, and says awarded in recognition of high standard of ethics and integrity in interscholastic athletics. Leadership by example becomes a model for all. And this is presented by the MIAA Wrestling Committee 2014, which I think is a real attribute for these folks. And so I need to hand it to Ms. Conley, but I also want the wrestling team to stand up so they can introduce themselves. And let me hand this over to you and say congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Cataldo.
And maybe I can have you help with the
Absolutely.
introduction.
So while it certainly belongs to the entire team, the email was about Harry Hellbach, who never ceases to amaze us with his courtesy and gentlemanly behavior. And even in conversation that I know Ron Ford had with his folks after the event, even his parents' response was, you know, he does so many wonderful things that we're kind of not even surprised anymore. And even though that might, they're the folks so they can say that kind of thing, but we share it and it's totally genuine. So I know that all of the gentlemen here support those kinds of attributes and are wonderful sports themselves, but I'll certainly hand it off to Harry because nicely done. And the rest of our gentlemen certainly share that honor, as well as sharing the honor of being league champions. And it is kind of an unusual thing when you have a really successful team that gets sportsmanship. We kind of joke about it behind the scenes that oftentimes the sportsmanship award goes to the team with kind of the worst record that year because we want to recognize them, but they really hung in there. And the fact that our young men were able to do both so handily is really tremendous. So congratulations on that. Thank you very much. And finally, Matt Froyo is our Division III, correct me when I get it wrong, Division III state champ in the 170 weight class?
Correct.
Matt, it's really something else. So he goes to all state finals. I think he has to start with 2 matches at Tongass Arena Friday night.
Correct.
And hopefully that continues on to Saturday. But it's really quite a tremendous feat. And folks that have seen him say that that you're very talented. So congratulations, Matthew.
Thank you very
We
much.
couldn't be more excited for you, gentlemen. Well done. And obviously Coach Sweeney wishes that he was here to share in the lauding of your successes. But we know that he couldn't be. So thanks very much. Great job.
Maybe everybody else can introduce, because I'm not
Oh,
sure
yeah, sure.
everybody here
Oh, of
knows.
course,
We
of
have
course,
some
of course.
folks that have younger children and children not in the system.
Shannon, you want to lead it off?
My name's Chandler Skolnick. I was a captain this year, and I wrestled at the 160 weight class, and I took 4th in the section, but I didn't place at states.
Joey Sestito, I'm a captain this year too, and I couldn't wrestle this year because I tore something on my shoulder. I took 4th in the session last year.
And then our state champ.
Yeah, I'm Matt Froyo. I wrestled 170 this year for Cohasset.
Great job.
And
Thanks
Harry,
so much.
Harry, what did you wrestle?
I'm Harry. I wrestled 126 and I came 4th at the sectionals and went 1 and 2 at the state tournament.
That is great. And
Amazing.
in addition to all this, we also have a certificate for you, Harry. away from the district, honoring you in recognition of your fine sportsmanship that we want. Always nice to have some happy news, huh? Great, I'm very excited. Let me shift here so I don't leave anything out. All right, next on your list is the Cohasset Youth Triathlon, and tonight we have Deb Beal coming to speak, but before she even talks about that, she has another announcement to make, because I believe she just came off of the ice.
Yes, we did. We, here, I'm gonna stand behind you.
I was gonna have, I have a chair right there beside Mr. Lucal.
This is, where do I start? We have a collaborative hockey team here, with Hanover High School. We started it 4 years ago. Our first year we were just a JV team, kind of finding our way through this and figuring it all out, and this is our third season as a varsity team. And you can see how these kids have gotten better and better and better, and this year, we qualified for the first time ever for the state tournament, which was very exciting, and we didn't wait till the last game to do it. We actually did it earlier in the season, which was great. So we played our first game tonight at Sapustas rink in Randolph. We played King Philip, who is a league opponent for us, and they had beat us the first time we played 5-1. Then the second time we played, we beat them 4-3. So tonight we beat them 5-3. We are moving on. We're playing Saturday. We're playing Milton High School. Not sure where and when. Ron has a couple different sheets of ice secured, but it all depends what the MIAA wants to do. So all very exciting.
Isn't that great for such a small school to have all these wonderful things? I'm
I
so
know.
happy for everybody.
It
Kids are
is. It's a
doing
lot
a
of
great
fun.
job. Great job. So that was the unexpected announcement, because they only just won before we came into session tonight.
Yes.
So it's one of those unanticipated items 48 hours in advance.
Right.
But the reason why Deb is here tonight is she's to talk about the Cohasset Youth Triathlon.
Yes, I had spoken with Bill Burnett, who's over here, and he's gonna back me up on all the logistics tonight, cause I'm sure you may have some questions. But, in the middle school this year, Mr. Ford and I, we started a, Couch to 5K running program, where we took the kids and we kind of put them through, taught them how to run and this, that, and the other thing, and tried to make it fun. Some thought it was great, some thought it was torture. But the idea was that we were trying to get these kids interested in a lifelong activity that they could do forever. So we gave the option of walking or running or doing whatever. And I bumped into Bill on a dog walk one afternoon back in the fall, and I said, how can we get these kids who we've got running now, how can we get them interested in your triathlon? Because it's clearly a ginormous community event. And we kind of talked back and forth that day about some ideas and whatever, and I said, would you be willing to come in the springtime to kind of promote it, spend a day with the kids and horrify his two daughters who are in 7th grade? And he was like, absolutely, I'd love to be a part of it, let's think of something. So we kind of went our separate ways, and I didn't do a whole lot of thinking, but he apparently did. And we came up with the idea of a youth triathlon to get the kids in the community the opportunity to expose themselves to it, so that someday they may want to do the big one that all their parents do and their neighbors do and everybody in the community seems to do. So we went ahead and we kind of began to formulate a plan for this youth triathlon. Keeping it simple, we don't want to put the kids in the ocean, because it's scary enough for an adult. You can only imagine a kid. So we went to the swim center, and they're 100% on board to use the pool. So the kids will swim, down to the little kids. What is it, 7? Age 7? Is that where we're starting? 7. So they may just swim from one end of the pool to the other, and then they'll hop on their bikes and they'll go up Sawyer Street. And this is where the schools come in. We want to go through the parking lots of Deer Hill and Osgood, and then come back down to the swim center and transition, and then they'll run back up. And then the older the kids get, the further they run. So that, the 7-year-olds won't run a whole lot or bike a whole lot, but they get to do all 3 events. So we went to the Board of Selectmen, and they've approved us for this, which is fantastic. And now we just need to get all the final logistics put together, and wanted to make the school committee aware that we want to use the facilities, and make sure that they're open that day. What do we need to do for you guys? supplies for this to happen, and so on and so forth.
And the cost, you have a cost or?
Yeah, Bill's got a lot of that
Do you wanna come over,
information.
Tom? I'll get you a chair.
Wherever.
I have a couple questions. Can I ask some questions? Okay.
She was gonna mention the cost of it first.
Wait, can I ask Mrs. Wilson? Can I ask Mrs. Wilson? A couple things. It's gonna be in the spring, did you say?
It's in the summer, it's
Oh, in the
Saturday,
summer?
July 12th,
Okay.
so it's
And-
2 weeks after the big one.
And are there other, like, towns in Massachusetts, I would think, that have had youth ones?
There's one big one.
There's only two other ones. There's one in Boston at MIT, and there's one in outside of Concord, Mass.
Cause I know my kids participated in the one at Killington, and they had a kid section to it, you know.
Yeah.
Where everyone could participate, and the youngest people were, I think, 7 or 8, but for the most part, you know, it was an adult event. But, no, that sounds cool. So there are some other ones in.
There's only a handful, but they're
Yes.
wildly successful, getting the kids involved. And
Yeah.
as Deb said correctly so, the fact that we're at a pool setting, it's very safe.
Right.
And that consideration.
Have you given
So-
thought to fees or the time? that you're-
Fees are $35 for one child. It's $35 per child. We are donating money back to the pool center.
Yep.
And we're also looking at some, we have not identified that yet.
No, we're still working.
We're still working on that, but there's gonna be some other Cohasset nonprofit we wanna give to. I would say by April 1st we'll have that identified. But it's very important we give money back to, well, certainly the pool center, but also some other charity.
Like a lot of the big triathlons and big events, they go to, like, your big one is the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation. Yeah, we could raise great money, but these are the kids in our community, so let's give back to our community. Or even, neighboring towns, somewhere where
Yeah.
the kids are gonna benefit from it.
In fact, I'll tell you, we've opened registration, we already have 75 kids already signed up,
Wow.
and they're from all over, they're not Cohasset. So they're from all over, yeah, it's been great.
So I have a question, so what do you need from the school, what sort of?
Yeah,
That's what we're kinda unclear of, we don't know if we're asking permission to use.
Well, if you need to, if you need to use any of the facilities, that's,
Right.
what
No.
sort of facilities would you need?
so we're not using the facilities, but we're using the pavement around the
Land.
facilities,
Okay.
right? So that's
So you
where we just
need
want you to
access.
say, you know what, it's great, no problem, on Saturday, July 12th, we will be going, up from the pool center, making a left behind Deer Hill, right, through, over, behind, through the basketball courts, then around Osgood and then back
Okay,
to sort
so you
of-
need access to.
That's all we're
yeah,
saying,
okay.
Yeah,
exactly.
we're not going
So
inside.
external, okay.
We're not going out, there's no need for any facilities. In fact, parking, thanks to the music circus, all parking's gonna be at the music circus.
Right.
So we're just simply, kids and volunteers will be on the property. We just wanted your,
Blessing.
approval, blessing, thank you for that,
Yeah, we can't use blessing in public school.
Right,
Sorry.
exactly.
We wanted a thumbs up.
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah,
question.
right.
Have you already spoken with public safety about maybe closing the road for the time of the?
Yeah, right, so that's been all set. Chief Quigley is, Chief
It's a
Sylvia.
contained area, it seems
It's
to
all
be like
set.
Yeah,
a
it's just
perfect
the lights at
scenario.
Sawyer
Yeah,
to,
it's all set.
top of Fair Oaks, really.
Yeah.
And
And-
the residents of all those, of that whole area will be able to get out.
That was
if
the
they need
next
to.
word out of my
Yep.
mouth, was about the residents.
Yep,
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
there'll be one lane open for travel and one lane open for racing.
So I'm gonna get out of my driveway.
Well, you're gonna be working on it, so.
Yeah, you're gonna have a flag.
Only if you turn right.
Just a question, do you have a limit on the number of, children participating in each age group?
Not each age group, but overall, we're thinking that 400 or 500
Max?
max
Okay.
is something that we feel comfortable from a safety perspective.
Right.
And are you looking to stagger times for the different
Oh.
age groups?
Absolutely.
Okay.
What happens is each child will leave every 10 seconds from the pool wall. So it's not gonna be like you see in the adult race where it's
Okay.
one big wave. It's all very staggered every few seconds they end up leaving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I ask for a motion to approve the youth triathlon, Cohasset Youth Triathlon for, what's it is?
Saturday, July 12th.
Saturday,
It's
July
all up on the
12th.
website and everything.
The use of,
The use of the school facilities
schools,
and
yes.
grounds.
I'll make a motion to approve, the Cohasset Youth Triathlon utilizing school facilities on Saturday, July 12th for the purpose of, triathlon. I'll second that. Sorry.
Sounds good to me, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I ask one question? What website should they be looking for if people want to sign up?
Streamline events.
Streamline, thank you.
Yeah,
I would be
or
looking
if I
for
can
something,
Yeah, that's
it
perfect.
could be
Streamline Events is
specific.
perfect, or specifically it's the Cohasset Junior Tri.
Thank you. That might help
Thank
folks
you, Barbara.
listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great. Thank you all.
All right, thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
How
Jen.
about we'll all volunteer, right?
You got it.
Yes, sure.
What? Yes.
I'll give everybody a second to readjust here. I can All right, so the next thing on the agenda tonight is, Mrs. Moriarty is here. You have a letter in front of you from both she and Mr. Mahoney from the music department. And they're here, she is here to discuss the Broadway and New York University classroom experience in New York City, 2014. I am surely gonna have to chaperone this trip.
We need a couple extra chaperones. Thank you for having me. So the little backstory is that for as many years as I can remember, every other year we try to offer our students some sort of experience to take their arts education outside of the classroom, to have an authentic experience. Often corresponds with major cities where there are great theater and performances happening. This year, New York proved to be a wonderful venue for our students, both in costs and offerings. We have, in addition to our students that play and sing, we have a growing theater program. And through working with Linda Walker-Indeck and Walker Travel, she was able to actually reach out to the Motown production on Broadway and have the opportunity for our students to be on the stage with the cast and learn from them and then go to the show that evening. And in addition, in past years, we've taken the students under the idea of competing, but it's really not about the trophy, although they're shiny and nice. We were fortunate enough to reach out to the professors at NYU, which has one of the premier performing universities, and some of their professors are willing to do clinics with our students, both band and chorus, so we would be able to teach our students who want to go on in the arts, make a direct link to college and performance beyond high school, but also just to get a varying perspective from a continuing education professor who's certainly an expert. And in addition to that, we're trying to tie in history. There'll be various sightseeing from the Statue of Liberty to guided tour through the top of the Rock. We're very aware of our broadcast program, our video production, and they'll be able to go around Rockefeller Center, see some of the hub for the Today Show and things like that. In this package, we try to make it very easy for families, so it's pretty much all inclusive, so that we can let families know what they're getting into. We try to really wrap it all up tight, and we spread payments out over the next few months so that again it's accessible for families. And we always have a plan with the support of our arts boosters to help make sure that this trip is accessible for all students.
Sounds great. I know you're involved with starting a Scholar Artist Program.
Yes.
The CF. This would dovetail nicely with that. I know they're looking at setting that up, which that might even be going by that time. Who knows? That might help fund some of it.
Great.
I just answered my own question. It's the first time that we've seen this, so I didn't know, I was curious about the cost. Yeah.
Paul?
Yep.
I know there's at least one graduate of Cohasset High School, Austin Breslow, that is working for actually the producers of Saturday Night Live in New York City. So but there might be some opportunities to
Absolutely.
dovetail with some graduates. I could email you. It'd be a great way to reach out and have kids see what their path was.
Absolutely.
And David Ingber is also active right now. He's written a show.
Yes.
So, he's done the taking music and into a show.
Fantastic. And I will also let you know, the reason that the trip is placed on the weekend that it is because all AP testing is completed and there are no MCAS or any kind of major testing. That is why we selected that weekend, because we certainly would never want our students to be arriving back from a weekend of sleeplessness, et cetera, and then going into major exams and so forth. So So all of the academics should be accounted for by that time.
Okay.
It's good to know.
Ask for a, motion to approve the, high school musical, trip to New York City.
I make a motion to approve the high school musical trip to New York City, May, 2014, from May 16th, Friday, through Sunday, May 18th, 2014.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay,
One quick
fine.
question, sorry I didn't ask it earlier. Do you have a limit to the number of students? I see that you can add chaperones as you need them.
We absolutely can. We don't have a limit right now. Our max traveling, I believe, would be 150 due to the enrollment in the performing groups.
Okay.
So, but we do keep the chaperones have always been 10 to 1.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. This is terrific.
Thank you so much.
Great, that's what we're like. And next up, technology.
So I sent an email earlier today that, Ms. Bennell was not able to get up today due to some family issues, so we're going to reschedule him at a later date. I let you know as much as as soon as I could. So the next folks up are for the middle school, schedule, and I have Mrs. Conley here to talk.
Thank you. As promised, when we first presented it a few months ago, or several meetings ago, we were looking for approval to change the reporting schedule at the middle school to trimesters instead of quarters, which would mean 6 grading reports a year instead of 8. And at the time, it was, fairly well received by the committee, and we promised to continue to do some research on area schools, which we have done. And we've continued the conversation at faculty meetings, team leaders, and grade level meetings in the middle school. And unanimously, I've not had a teacher in the middle school who isn't supportive of it, and we've certainly talked about it at school council and at PSO meetings too. And parents have been supportive of the philosophy behind it, giving younger students another 10 days in each marking period to be able to demonstrate their great best successes and have opportunities to, so things don't feel high stakes. So I'm bringing it back and asking for approval now, since folks have had some time to think about it. Mrs. Sandler and I have researched about 50 area schools, and it seems to be about half and half, but using the Boston Magazine rankings, there are many top performing districts that this seems to be the case in. I remember Westwood as one of them off the top of my head, so we certainly would be keeping par with folks that we think we keep par with anyway. And so I would just need to ask for your formal take on that, so we would know how to proceed and make our plans for next year.
Any discussion?
I don't have any
Okay.
questions. Are you gonna do this on an interim basis to see how it goes, or you just going full
Just
throttle?
wanna do it starting in September, and the fact that, as I had shared before, the fact that one of the, first conversations that I'd had with, middle school teams upon my arrival last fall was that this was an idea that they'd had for quite some time, and they just felt they hadn't been able to get any traction on it. And so as I often try to do, if the folks who are the practitioners who think this is really what is best for kids, and they seem to feel that way across the board, then I certainly wanna try to champion that cause. And Mrs. Sandler and I also see the philosophical value in it, particularly for us 6th graders.
Okay. Yep.
I would just say that, Ashley, until I came to Cohasset, I've never been in a district that doesn't have trimesters at their middle school level, including where I happen to reside as well. And so, I know it's a lot more work to be setting up quarterly, and it does give the students an advantage. And because they're in that vulnerable growing period, as they're changing the way they study and how they learn, it seems that it's an advantage for them to have that extra time each term to sort of shore up whatever hasn't worked for them so far in a term.
I support it developmentally as a psychologist. I see a lot of 6th, 7th graders. Makes sense to me, totally.
Make the motion to, allow the middle school schedule to change to trimester.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Nothing, passes.
Splendid, thank you.
Thank you.
So last meeting, I'll just go on, you already,
Sure, no.
good. The last meeting, when we were together, we were talking about class numbers, we were talking about how do we determine whether we have a teacher or we have an ESP, and there are a number of factors involved, and of course, I asked all of the principals to come, I asked, Mrs. Sanino to come, I asked Mrs. Demas to come, so that they can really address this with me. There are always factors depending on whether we're looking at the elementary level, whether we're looking at the secondary level, whether it's a matter of class numbers, whether there's other factors that go into hiring teachers. When is it best to hire a teacher? When is it best to hire an ESP? There are certainly some differences. Our teachers are certified versus many of our ESPs are not certified. They do have college degrees, but they don't necessarily have certifications. And under the laws, of course, now we have to have highly qualified teachers in front of our students. The other advantages, of course, with teachers is that teachers are paid to be there in the classroom all day, whereas our ESPs are not paid to be alone with our students all day long in a teaching mode. So there's a number of reasons why we would look to choose a teacher over an ESP. But I also asked folks to sort of come and discuss what it was that they look at, because it's very individualized from year to year, from population to population. It would be very hard to establish a protocol that says whenever A happens, B needs to happen. We merely look at each of the classes as they're coming through to determine what is best for the students and for the school. So I asked principals if they would be willing to come tonight and talk about those matters, and if you have questions specific to whatever's being said, then have a chance to ask, and maybe that will also help as we move forward with the growing enrollment. What is it that we think about when we're trying to decide class numbers, choose a teacher, choose an ESP? So.
Can I just make a comment on that? I don't think it was ever the intention to have an ESP instead of a teacher.
No, I never expected that at all. No, that was not the intention we went away with either.
Okay.
I wanna make that very clear, but in terms of what goes into our thinking when we're determining should we open another class, or would it be better to have support in a classroom
Okay,
with an ESP?
all right, the way you said it, I was confused.
Yeah, no, we would not hire an ESP to teach all day, but we have, for teachers who do teach, obviously they're there to teach, but we have certain contractual, agreements that we have to keep with our ESPs, that we certainly do utilize them for some teaching, but we would never ask them to stand in a classroom all day to teach. That would be inappropriate. So that was what I was referencing.
Okay.
So I'm glad you asked to clarify that. So maybe I can begin by asking Mrs. Conley, I don't wanna put you on the hot seat, but maybe you can just talk a
She's
little
used
bit
to
about
it.
what goes into your school.
Sure, I think at the secondary level it is different from what I've discussed with my elementary colleagues. Our decisions based about where ESPs are assigned and to whom they're assigned is based strictly on the student need. And so we have some unique situations. Sometimes we have people that are dedicated to a single student it could be for developmental reasons, it could be for physical reasons, it could be for a lot of things. But we have a specific need that needs to be addressed. We have certain ESPs assigned to specific programs, because those programs service students who have a different kind of learning need. Primarily, the way it's done is we look at the service delivery grids of students who are on IEPs, and at the secondary level, the primary function is to assist students with learning disabilities. And so we look at our student population across 6-12, but we really try to keep certain people to the middle school, have a grade level person, and then several people that help out extra, and several at the high school, but depending on who is our population every year dictates where folks go. And my obligation is to make sure that the students are receiving the services that they require, and that we wanna make sure that students are feeling appropriately supported in the classrooms. And certain paraprofessionals in the building have certain niche roles, meaning that they have an area of expertise. So whenever possible, of course, we wanna capitalize on that as well. But we really sit down in August, working with the liaisons to say, who are our kids this year? What are their needs? And therefore, where are we placing people? So for me, it feels fairly straightforward. Would you like to add anything to that, Lori? No.
Maybe I can turn to Dr. DeKeer. I'm just gonna move down developmentally.
Sure.
Well,
Well, I've had a lot of time to think about how best to staff the school and where to make my recommendations over the last 7 years. Because when I first got here, we had 360 students at the Deer Hill School. We now have 444. So this is a question, how best to serve kids with a growing population, that I've thought about every single year. It isn't always easy to know exactly what to do. It depends on a number of factors, and there are always implications to whatever you decide, pros and cons. One of the things that I do consider strongly is the research, the peer review, the empirical, the longitudinal research that's out there. It's pretty conclusive that class size will make a difference in children's achievement at the primary levels. At the upper intermediate levels, that difference is not quite so clear. Although children at the upper intermediate levels will report greater comfort level in their classroom with a smaller class size. And teachers in the upper intermediate will report greater hardship with the larger class sizes. But it doesn't necessarily figure into student achievement in grades 4 and 5. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you clarify a little bit more what
Yeah.
upper intermediate
Yeah.
means?
4 or 5.
Okay.
And primary K3 is what I refer to.
Okay, thank you.
So when I think about the Deer Hill third graders, I think that it is important for us to keep class sizes, if we have to, as low as possible. And when I think of the fifth graders, I see a little more wiggle room to go to kind of push the envelope to 25, 26, maybe even 27, depending on the independent level of the children, the classroom configuration, the number of children with extensive needs, and the amount of ESP support that we can lend them. So the question of how much ESP support is important, in my opinion, becomes very important when you are dealing with a large class size. Now, why would I recommend ever a larger class size over a small one? I would say at the fifth grade level, what I also need to consider is if I were to add a 7th classroom to the current 6 classrooms that we have, that would make it so that in order to have common planning time and to run the schedule and everything else, we would need to have another .2 music teacher, another .2 phys ed teacher, and a couple of other specialist periods. Because right now, not all, but many of our specialist teachers are teaching to the maximum amount of minutes that they possibly can during the day and during the week. All children need to have their specialist periods. So if I have an extra classroom, that would be a consideration. Perhaps not insurmountable if we could find some money somewhere to hire .2 specialists, but that wouldn't be easy. But that would be a consideration. The other consideration would, of course, be geography in the building. At the Deer Hill School, we're very lucky. We have room. I feel like I can always find a room for another classroom. So that's not as big a consideration as it would be to outfit it with what we're so very lucky to have now, which is our 21st century technology. So if there would be that consideration too. Another consideration would be looking ahead. Would I be hiring a 7th teacher only to let them go at the end of the year because the following cohort is not as large? Would I be providing them with a paid mentor and giving them training and having them inculcated into the Deer Hill School community only to let them go at the end of the year? That wouldn't be a deal breaker for me. I would do it if that was the thing to do, but that's just one other consideration. So there's lots of considerations to have. I know that having an ESP, and we've done it, our 5th grade classes this year were very big. 26, we're up to 26. And so as a result of that, we did hire an additional ESP for that 5th grade cohort, and it has made a big difference in the amount of attention the children receive, and a lesser burden for the teachers in terms of management and greater supervision for us out on the playground. So I think that was the right decision. So those are the things that I think about when I think of making a recommendation.
Mr. Mukau.
So in early childhood education, I think it's really a horse of a different color, if I may, and that is, we are a pre-K to 2 school. So when we think about our integrated preschool, there are children who need assistance with skills of daily living, with behavior management, and with access to learning. So at that level, we do staff more heavily with ESPs for those reasons. And when I mention behavior, it's not just to help control behavior, but sometimes collecting data on behavior so that we can put together the right interventions for children. So when we think about a preschool level, that's a little bit heavier on the ESP side of things. When we move to kindergarten, I think the best way to describe it is we have 130 students, which is 260 boots, 260 mittens, 130 hats, and that is a lot of management for one person to do per class. So we again look for the ESPs for help with that, along with some behavioral intervention and again some access to learning. So I just wanted you to understand from an early childhood perspective, that's more where the ESPs fit in on that level. At the grades 1 and 2, it is more for the students on individual education plans and ensuring their access to learning. And that may, just to give you a snapshot of that, a student may have a packet to do in a center activity that's going on throughout the room, and some children may find that very overwhelming, and so there's an ESP who can help structure them through those center activities. So that would be a snapshot. Again, if there's a physical disability of a child, then we, of course, would assist with that as well. But primarily, it's for students who are on individual education plans at the grades 1 and 2 levels. And if you have questions, I'll answer, but that's kind of a snapshot of how we think about ESPs at the Oscars.
Now, are any of the ESPs specialists for given age group or class group?
I don't think they come with a specialty. I think they come with a preference.
Okay.
I think they come with a skill set that they have kind of honed over some years, and then they like working with a particular age group. And our preschool ESPs have been with us for quite some time, and I don't think if we asked them, they'd leave. If it was their choice, they'd stay versus moving.
It's very helpful, thank you.
That's very
Does that help?
Yeah,
At
very
least
much.
to clarify and give
Very
you
much.
sort of some insights of how we do things?
Right.
You know.
Colleen Childs, 73 Pond Street. I'm the co-chair of the Cohasset CPAC Special Education Parents Advisory Council. Just to touch base on a little bit of what Mr. LeCount and Dr. DiChiara said regarding our ESPs. CPAC has been very interested in seeing our ESPs trained in professional development along with our teachers getting this training. I know Dr. DiChiara has done some autism training, and if we're going to be utilizing our ESPs, which it sounds like, or that their general thought was utilizing our ESPs, that their professional development be paramount within our school district to make them the best ESPs we can. Thank you.
Thanks.
I have a comment to make related to professional development, but I'd like to do it when we discuss the calendar.
Okay.
Okay? Because I have some thoughts around expanding available days so that we don't use as many school days for snow, and just kind of some thinking outside the box.
Yes.
Katie Dugan, 100 Black Rock Road. I just wanted to raise one observation about where we are in terms of the stress that we have in terms of adding an additional classroom, because I appreciate everything that Dr. DiChiara said in terms of the cost of it, but we are now at the point where when we're facing this, for one single grade level. I think we're facing this for potentially multiple grade levels as we kind of look forward. It seems to me very obvious that we're gonna face not only adding teachers if the growth continues, and again, we haven't had that confirmation yet, the growth is gonna continue, but the follow-on impact is not gonna be that single teacher, but all the specialists, because the killer for the budget going forward is not that single classroom or two classrooms that you're adding. It tips the balance in terms of adding real headcount as it comes to specialists. Mr. Dykes and Mr. White have literally, hours left in the day. And so when I think about the cost going forward, we're at that tipping point, as we've talked about, that the total infrastructure needs to expand in terms of specialists. Kathy Brooks, as an example, doesn't have an hour left in the day to do additional math, nor do your reading specialists. So it's not just gonna be a classroom when we have to address this if the growth continues. It's gonna be a real step function up, because you're gonna have to add to the specialist infrastructure. And that's what I want to make sure that you guys are aware of and the broader town is aware of.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next is, school calendar.
So, let me just pull this out, because there's a lot of notes with this tonight. Fortunately, we haven't had any snow days since the last time we met. I was sure today might be one of the days. Now they're saying Monday. At some point, the snow has to end, because the sun has to come. And the warmer days have to be with us. But what I had said to the committee I would do is send out an email to all of the teachers and send out an email to all of the parents, and those of you who have students here probably received a Survey Monkey question, single question giving 3 options as to when folks would like to see school open. Teachers answered and parents answered, and I have 4 pages of comments with some thoughts that probably will go hand in hand with what Mrs. Estino has to say in terms of some of the parents thinking outside of the box. They might be identical thoughts to Mrs. Estino or not. But I will tell you that for the 15-16 calendar, and there were a lot of people, I think, who didn't read that this is 15-16. There's a lot of comments kept telling me school is closing on Sunday. Did I make a mistake here? But I think it's when I look back for the coming year, school would close on Sunday, but we're in the next year. So to let you know that if school were to begin on September 8th, as we had talked about, and end on June 21st, and if we had 5 snow days come to June 28th, 16.86% of the people desired that start date. Whereas
The September 8th.
the September 8th.
We're talking 2015, 2016.
Yes. Yes, and 600 people answered this, so I think that's a
Yeah,
pretty
that's
good
huge.
pocket of folks.
Really
That's
good
huge.
response
And
rate.
then I'll share some of the
Okay, keep going.
comments about that as well.
Yeah, so that was 16%.
For the school year beginning on September 2nd and ending on June 17th, and if we should have 5 snow days ending on June 24th, and I will not let that happen. I'm telling you, we cannot have this many days, but nonetheless, 59.93% of the group asked for it to start on September 2nd. So we're talking 60% essentially.
And what was the percentage on the 8th?
16.86, so basically 17%.
Why the second? I thought we had thought about the first. The first is.
The first is on Tuesday. I can't remember what we were thinking. I think it's because we had to have the teachers in. Had to do with the teachers coming in.
The teachers would come in the first.
So, but we had the second to give the
Yes.
long weekend. And we can change it to the first. But at least we know that week, 59.93% of the parents are close to and teachers, close to 60% desired that week. And then if we were to begin school on August 27th and end on June 13th, 23% of the people felt that was their choice. So really, the first choice is begin school on September 2nd. The second choice was begin school on August 27th. And the third choice is begin school on September 8th. Just a quick question?
Were you able to delineate the responses from faculty as opposed to parents within that, or?
I can't see it.
Okay.
Some of the teachers actually wrote their names, so I know they were
Okay.
teachers.
Okay.
And some of the parents wrote their names, but we couldn't separate out the teachers from the parents, no, but we sent separate links identifying teachers and parents, but when it comes in, it blends together.
Okay.
So, but I can tell from the answers that a lot of faculty did answer, cause when I went around the school saying, did you answer? People were going, absolutely,
So that's, I didn't realize that, that's actually too bad that, it's not separate because, you're getting two different constituencies, obviously, in
For
one note.
different reasons.
So you have two different links and there's no way to separate out the answer.
They blended.
But however, it's not necessarily a bad thing that they're blended, because you still have a predominant number of people who really wanted to start.
600 is a big
Yes,
response
right.
pool.
And the idea of starting in August is like that would want me.
That was the
grow
second
up.
choice though, I'm really
I know,
surprised.
I know, but I don't think too many people wanna go for August 27th, cause it's pretty
Well,
hot now.
23% do.
Yeah.
More than.
I know,
Exactly.
I know, it's the second, but there's a huge difference between, the number one choice and number two choice.
And I need to make a couple
Cause you
comments.
said 50 some odd percent?
60% essentially said
60%.
September,
Yes.
that first week of
59
September.
something. Yeah, so.
And we can choose to start September 1st, or we can choose to start September 2nd as I have it here.
Yeah, if we're gonna start September 2nd, we might as well start September 1st, I mean.
That's, I'm
because
sure the
you
same,
do a
we
col-
get approx 60% again, but the idea is that folks are least happy starting September 8th, least. I will
Way too
say
late.
that I have 4 pages of responses, and many of the responders, thanked us for asking them. So I think that's a good thing that we put it out to include both parents and faculty. And then there were some questions again about professional days, and I know you have some thoughts that I'm sure we all wanna hear, and then I'll also share some of the ones we have here. There were some parents that were quite adamant about not starting school and faculty not starting school in August. And I absolutely understand there are commitments, long-term commitments for families not starting in August. I'm sure, when I came here, I had been starting in August for so many years that it seemed very late to me. And we can see, my first year we had no snow days, we really didn't notice it. But these last 2 years, last year we had 7 days, and this year, fortunately, we've only had 3. But there's been a lot of places around us that have closed. And, we've been very, stingy about closing school in the hopes of not dragging it too late into the summer.
Do you have a sense for at least how many parents and how many faculty were polled, even though you can't spell out the answer?
We polled every faculty member, anybody that had an email in the school district, and every parent out of IPAS.
And you don't have, of the 600, you can't even see how many parents answered versus how much
No.
faculty answered.
We have to get our stats guys to help us.
It wouldn't show it, even a staff group wouldn't show it, cause it goes into the same.
No, the data.
So we do
are-
next time, can we do 2 separate surveys?
I will ask Mr. Manel to set
Yeah,
it up.
there's a way to do it, I used to run studies,
So.
and it's really not that hard to do.
But I think a lot of the comments were earlier the better, people preferred to come back that week in September versus staying at school till the end of June. A lot of folks commented that they had commitments the last week of June, and it's hard for their students to be in school. A lot of parents and faculty probably commented that starting in August, the problem for them was that when they had children who were in school here and children who are in college, they're running off to take their kids to college.
Right.
It's very hard to be getting their own children here or wherever they live ready for school simultaneously. So that was an issue. Then there were comments again about professional development. Could we take the full days and just convert to more half days? And I'm not sure if that's the answer, I'll be honest with you. One of the things we did do, and I had worked with Mrs. McGrail, is we chose the one day in January this year to coincide with the end of her semester and the start of second semester, so there'd be a break in the schedule. Unfortunately, we had 2 snow days before that day, so they had to have the day off, and then the kids still had to come back to school for 2 more days in the semester. So that is probably not the most advantageous thing. I'm glad we tried it, but it also helps us to see that probably going forward, it might not be the best way to go unless we have no school before that day. And then I had parents ask, teacher is asking, would it be possible to do the Friday of before as we enter February break? Because a lot of students are departing on the Friday of February break, and the teachers are obligated to be here on that Friday before we go off for the week, and that would be a great day to have a professional day. Something to decide. I had some teachers come to me today and asked me if we could do somebody was on a plane coming home from a trip with a group of teachers from some other districts and said that their particular districts locally do Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday of February break, and then the kids come back for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday in case there are snow days. So that's another thought, do we shorten the February break?
No, I don't think that's gonna work in class.
Right, I'm not telling you to do it, it's just an option.
The March vacation didn't work either.
No, we can't do March, and without the new parking stand, we don't know what that will look like yet, cause there'll be a mid-exam and a final exam.
So then would that half professional day, the 10th of February, be shifted to the 12th? It'd be a half day?
Well, right now, what we had was, at the end of January, we had a full professional day going on to break the semesters, and I don't think it's,
That's the 27th.
that is, yes.
27.
So, because we broke it right at the half point, and what I'm saying to the committee is, it might be worth considering bringing it over to February 12th. Because the teachers are obligated to be here regardless of whether the students are here, and then we would not be disrupting. If there's a longer span of time between the holiday break in December and then that February break. You don't have a long weekend as such. Because we know, the fact is that when we have, Martin Luther King weekend and we add that professional day on Friday, a lot of families leave on Thursday and they don't come back till Tuesday, so they're still taking 4 or 5 days off. And we recognize that when families have the opportunity to be together, we certainly think that is a very healthy thing to do, but a lot of parents commented it is right after the holiday break. So it seems like we're back a very short time, and in this case, we had a snow day in between.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really short. So I think moving it possibly to the February, the 12th isn't a bad idea, but I wouldn't move it without speaking with the committee, and then I also have to go back and speak to Mrs. McGrail.
It's
So this might not get solved tonight, but I wanted to bring out all those options.
The interesting thing is if people make flights and stuff, it's easier to get out, on Thursday night versus Friday night, but,
I agree, but what I'm discovering from the airlines is they've been noticing that people are leaving earlier, and so I'm noticing the price point keeps moving out a little further each time.
Right. I'm most concerned about education,
Absolutely.
Educationally, what's the better plan?
So those who generally move their children on Friday to head out early, they might, and now if we're off Friday, they might move out
They'll
early
leave
on
on
Thursday or Wednesday. I can't say that won't happen, but it seems more plausible to have a longer period of learning if we do take it to the Friday before the February break.
Quick question, do you have an idea, I'm sorry, Jean,
No, that's okay.
of how many students are not in school on that Friday before the vacation week
I didn't check that.
in February?
I couldn't give you a percentage, but it's not nearly the amount that folks claim it is. I was told when I arrived, the halls will be empty, plenty of the children show up to school.
Yes,
There
they
are quite
do.
a few dismissals, I
Yeah,
would say,
right.
the early dismissals, from noon to 1 o'clock, that's a busy time in the office, I would say there's more of that, and
Okay.
certainly when we know that some
What
families
day?
get a jump
The
start.
Friday before the
Before
February break.
break.
Right.
Because if you're thinking about the learning, when your
Right.
class dynamic totally shifts, because half the kids are leaving or not there, or, that's something to look at.
Okay, so I have some questions. More questions, so obviously, we're not done with this discussion, but, in terms of snow days and gaining time back, I'm curious how many districts in our area have a full day of school off on Good Friday? Because most religious activities happen later in the day. Like the Stations of the Cross used to be at 4 o'clock. I don't know what time everything starts, but a lot of people wanna travel on that day, obviously.
12 o'clock.
What?
12 o'clock.
Well, no, some of them don't start, some
Sorry.
churches don't start until 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So,
Catholics are 12.
I'm just curious. Well,
You're the Jesuit friend,
no,
so
well,
I had to
if you-
bring it up.
So, I'm not suggesting that we go to school on that day, but I'm suggesting that maybe we have early dismissal on that day. And just look at the broad spectrum of surrounding districts, just to kind of see what other places do.
I'll be glad to go back and look. I know a lot of districts, as I was looking at the calendar, still have Good Friday off even around here.
Mhm.
But I'll go back and check fully for you and report at the next meeting. I know last year when we talked about possibly using Good Friday as a day, I know the committee at the time was not feeling that was a good choice.
I think just because it was kind of last minute.
Yeah.
March, I
okay.
believe.
The
I
what?
think it was in March that we had to have that discussion,
Yes.
because
Right.
we had,
It was very late.
Right, so late to the party isn't a great idea.
And I
But
know there
if
were
we're doing
districts that
things-
decided right before the February break that
Yeah.
they were opening during February break, and we're
Right.
not, we know people make commitments well
And
in
a couple of
advance.
school districts had Saturday school, I think that
Right.
Hingham actually had a couple of Saturdays.
Yep.
Where they had a half day, which counted as a full day, and, you know,
Yeah.
they didn't have to go extra time. They got out significantly earlier than we did. Also, as a parent, it seems like we have a lot of days off here. It seems like there are a lot of full days off here for professional development, but then when I actually looked at this calendar, we don't. There were only 2. So I'm curious if we could potentially have maybe 2 consecutive half-days, a Thursday and Friday instead of an all-day Friday. So we would get the benefit of 2 more days of and we would get an additional professional development segment for the ESPs. Because they don't have to be here when there's a full day off, but they do stay if it's a half day. So we could maybe add something in for them, and that, if we took the 2 full days and made them 4 half days, they'd have 2 more half days of professional development opportunity.
So, good point. To that note, I'm going to turn to the principals and ask on those half days that you currently have, your ESPs are involved in your professional development activities generally?
Most of the time, yeah.
They're expected to stay.
They are.
But they're involved, they're not just sitting in a room
They
doing.
will have their own training,
Mhm.
or they'll participate with the teachers. If I could just clarify though, the way we do early release days, it doesn't exactly split the day in half.
Right.
It takes an hour and a half away from the instructional time. So, for example, at Deer Hill School, our early release time is 12:40. So, if you were to take away the lunch and recess time, it's not exactly half a day.
Right, no, I know that it's not a half day, but I'm just
So I feel
curious
like
if
in
we did
terms of
2 consecutive days, if they might get the same amount of professional development time.
Right,
between the
so
two.
the only reason why I bring it up is because
I didn't do
I
the
feel
math.
that if you were to add up the minutes of professional development time with 2 early release days, it wouldn't
Add up to one.
equal
wouldn't
a full
equal.
day.
No.
Okay.
And the other thing about full days, cause I think that's a good discussion, when we do full, we do half, and I'm gonna turn to Mrs. Demus for a minute, because a lot of times, she works in concert with everybody in establishing the full days of what we're doing, and a lot of times we plan the fact that we need those full days because presenters come in, and you can clarify if I'm correct here or not, but we have presenters come in and they need the day to present, and some fly in, need
Oh,
the
no,
day
I
to
understand
present.
that there are lots of things that go into this. But I'm also wondering if we're getting out 3 or 4 days earlier because we have less snow days, if possibly we add a full professional day at the end. After, and I know that can shift too because of the presenter issue.
It's not so much the presenter at the end of the year as the value.
Mhm.
It's the end of the year, I may or may not need this in September. I may or may not even be here in September.
Mhm.
So there's really no real value collaboratively for the end of the year
Okay.
to do that. That's the problem there. Too late in the year becomes less valuable.
Maybe we could put it on the other end then.
We do have it at the beginning of
I know
the year.
you have
We have
one
the
at the
first
beginning.
day as one of the 3. Full days are focused days.
Mhm.
So there are days when we focus on a district initiative that calls in, much of the time, an expert and a product that gives us 5 or 6 hours of full time. Actually, it's such a limited amount of professional development time in those 3 days that we have, actually. The half days are, as Dr. DeCiara said, are not really half days. They're about an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes of concentrated time, once the staff has lunch. So within that So there was the shift from having crammed in an entire day and then trying to mentally focus back in on the task. That we're going to leave that afternoon until I have another hour and a half, and it's so fragmented that we sometimes look at what is our full year focus, that we can do little pieces at a time. And like Dr. DeKiera has done with her staff, they've now come into study groups where they have a goal and that they work on it, and it's very valuable. But the value is not the same as a full day. They're very different entities. It would be very difficult, and I understand it would be wonderful. And from a professional development viewpoint, ending the year a little bit early is the most valuable, because even if we have to pay staff those last few days, they build curriculum on a volunteer basis. They come in, concentrate, work collaboratively, document curriculum. We work on it through the summer and prepare for our students in the fall. So that's a valuable time. Having lost that last year, we're still trying to catch up. So there are both sides to that, so I certainly see the value, but we do need those full days. They become very valuable.
Yep.
Katie Dugan, 100 Blackhawk Road. I just want to point out on the half days, and I want to speak up on behalf of Osgood teachers, because I've heard this from multiple Osgood teachers. They're the last to get released on a half day. So if you try to do anything district-wide, they are sprinting. And as a result, I heard a lot of feedback about, unfortunately, what was the great presentation that was done around safety, that they literally rushed in and had to jump into that discussion. And so when you try to do anything district-wide on a half day, it just doesn't work, unfortunately, with Osgood teachers. I've heard that multiple times.
And add to that, that half days or early release days are not district-wide. They cannot be. There's such staggered release times that, you're right, it's not.
And when we did it for, unfortunately, a very important topic, it didn't work out. One more question.
Go.
Hi, Sarah McSweeney, 14 Summer Street. First of all, Barbara, thank you. I think, and I think all of you have heard me mentioning, getting the key stakeholders involved, which are the community, parents and students and the teachers, is really important. So I'm glad you did the Survey Monkey. I think it's great that you got the high percentage. I think, so the problem we're trying to solve is trying to mitigate the snow days, which is gonna be really hard to do. That's gonna be really tricky. No matter how much you pull it in 3 days, you get 7 days, that blows it out the window. So, and I actually agree with Helene, we should be solving for the education. So people's day before vacation to fly out, those are really great problems to have. And those are, if that's our biggest problem in this room, that is a really, really good situation. But I think one of the things two things. One is on the professional days, I agree, they're really important. Tacking them on at the end of the year is the same conversation with the students. Everyone's checked out.
Yep.
So you're spending a lot of money and time, and you're not getting, just having the kids in there at 28, they're all looking out the window thinking about, the beach. So I think I agree with that. Some of the feedback that I've heard is around the professional days is they are concentrated in the January timeframe, which is coming off vacation, MLK weekend, where people say, hey, maybe we could take a look at the month of March, where, for example, in this month, it's really long, I don't have my calendar up, but it's a number of weeks, it's 5 consecutive full weeks, as opposed to MLK, you come back from vacation, MLK, another day, then you have kind of 4-day weeks. Also, that's when we tend to have a lot of the snow days. So maybe you could look at, hey, is there a time we can kind of just make it a little bit more consistently, 5-day weeks in a row, and then have some in March. But I think getting the people to kind of help you come to that decision and getting buy-in to the decision will help you, as opposed to getting people that will say, oh, I don't want to go back, and how come the MLK is not 4? You can't please everybody, but just getting people involved in the process will help you and support your decision going forward. But that is some of the feedback that I've heard around, hey, why do we have such a long March when we can maybe have a day there?
Of all my comments, just in fairness of 4 pages of comments, I had one person bring that up. Somebody did. I'm like, well, maybe it was you. I was her.
If it was, I'd certainly put my hand.
Can I just
I
address
did
the
have,
March for you?
I had one comment about that. A lot of people, it was mixed. A lot of thank you for asking us. That was a lot of what I got, but there were some suggestions. A lot were, can't we have one vacation break in March and take out the February and the April? That's very hard to do been in a district that did it,
Yes, we've already
and
did that, we tried, it was like a protest, it felt
well,
like
it's also very
a
hard.
revolution was going on.
It's very hard right now, particularly I wouldn't make that recommendation because the state will set the new state testing in accordance with the fact that the majority of districts do February and April. So if you kind of go out of sequence, you're gonna have everything off kilter, and I don't want to do that to the students because that's real disruptive in their learning and defeats the point of why we're coming here every day. So that's why we really can't consider it. I do have to say that I find January, at least these last 2 years, January has been a very short month, even though there's 31 days between the holidays, and we have to remember that, next year, of course, we have a 2-week vacation, and then when we come back, we have to be thinking about these vacations. So if you have extended vacations, and then you're back for 8 days, and you're out for 4, and then you're back, it's very hard. So I'm not against moving that full day in January at all. In fact, I probably would recommend it. The question is, where does it get moved to so it still has value for the teachers? And then, of course, the end result is the kids benefit because the teachers have had their repertoire skills enhanced. Bottom line.
Can I just add, however, how wonderful March would be, but the state has taken over March.
They absolutely
March
have.
5th is MCAS, March
Right.
20th is MCAS, April is MCAS, May is MCAS, May is
But
AP.
now-
So March to May are very, very difficult days. The state has also given the faculty some very serious mandates. We have district determined measures that we must create. Creating them in March is of no value. They have to be done, actually they should be done before February. Our teacher training, our new evaluation system, all of that has the biggest impact before the end of February. But particularly because of MCAS, I think we'd have a revolution. If we did March.
Well, and
Can I
one,
just comment on that? That's great feedback and really helpful. I didn't know that myself. So that should be it. That's your answer. Solve for the that comes ahead of everything else, right? People complaining about I don't like the half day. That's noise. That's
not
noise.
education.
Solve for the education. You just have to let people again, more information is better. People probably don't know that.
Transparency.
And they're wondering why it's all front loaded in January. Let them know that, and then that will help people understand why the scheduling is. But if that's the reason, then that's the answer. That's first and foremost.
so I would not recommend that the committee obviously vote on the calendar, because we do have to settle that full day, and I do wanna talk to Mrs. McGrail, and talk with the principals again. We have a leadership meeting this week. But I did want the committee to know what we had found out as I agreed I would do.
Okay.
I have to say, at the very least, many respondents, and you've heard it here tonight, concerns, and I know it came from both teachers and parents, because I can tell by how the comments are written, whether some of the folks are classroom teachers and some of the folks are parents, that they felt at the end of the year, and particularly these last 2 Junes have been very warm Junes, that when you start having the kids in there, it is very hard for them to focus. I know a lot of parents, and I know this had to be parent comments, because there were comments about, we wish the kids weren't watching movies in the last week of school. So I'm sure that was from a number of parents, and we understand that, kids are tired, curriculum is over. There are certainly things we can be doing, but when the rooms are really hot, and you can't be sending the kids out to play when it's excessively hot, I mean, there's some things we need to be thinking about. I am a believer that if there's ways to end school earlier, if there is that is something we should be considering.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so
Great.
we'll be back at the next meeting with this. Stay tuned for next week. Hooray. But the one thing we know at least is whether it's the first or the second, we know that should be the week we start. That's the one thing we can settle tonight. Alright. Just slide over here so I can change gears.
And people who are listening should realize it's not the September, it's, the year after.
Following year.
It's the 15-16 calendar. I think
Correct.
most people were looking at, thinking it was 14-15 and
Correct.
referencing next year, and that is not the calendar.
Correct.
That calendar has been voted on, but at this point, I might make the suggestion that depending on what we decide for professional days for this calendar, that you might want me to bring out next year's calendar again and review those dates as well. Just a thought. I know you've already voted and approved it, but, folks are feeling that the January is too rushed or we need to reconfigure things, it might be worth taking a look. So, but I'm not asking you to necessarily do that, I just wanna make that clear. Alright, in your packet, pull out my packet, you have a policy that was sent out, JECA. This is a policy on the enrollment of the children in the school department personnel. There were some questions, you know, in terms of personnel being able to enroll their children in the district, and of course I sent a letter out saying the children that are currently here can remain here, but at the same time, we also know that every child is different, every child learns in a different way and has different needs. But one of the things that we felt was very critical was to make sure in terms of the services that are delivered. And so what I did is I first of all, I sent to every South Shore district, and then I sent to every district in the state. I queried superintendents as to how they handled faculty who brought their children or personnel who brought their children into the district, if there were any needs, such as what if a child needed to go out of district. And the majority of towns and cities actually have it written into their teacher's contract. But there are about a handful of towns that do not, and as a result, they wrote a policy that basically served much of what many of these folks had in their contracts. And I can tell you the superintendents were sending me their contracts, so I didn't have to go to the DOE website to look at them. Talking about the fact that in the event that a faculty member brought their child in the event if a child should need, say, an out-of-district placement, that there were certain levels of service that would be offered. Children would be offered any services that were in a district. But if a child required specialized services outside of the district, that the district would be allowed to ask the children to return to their home district to be properly serviced. And that's essentially what this particular policy is for. Where you don't have it in your contract, it is to protect the children. So.
Just had two comments on it. One is supplementing the letter, maybe the policy needs to say it. I thought it was important that once we make a commitment to a student, that they can stay the duration of their time here. So if we're allowing a kindergartner to come in, as long as the parent is still employed.
Yes, that's, the letter says that.
And I think that's what you said. So maybe it just needs to be reflected and memorialized in the policy, because the letter and the policy are different documents. So in other words, you know, if someone comes in kindergarten, they get to stay through high school if their parent is still on personnel. So then I think that's an important commitment we make to them, so then there's not the uncertainty that, oh, well, does next year can the plug be pulled, you know?
This does not do that. This is strictly if a student were, say, to require specialized services and have to be placed in an out-of-district school,
Right.
we would ask the teacher to bring their child to their home district again.
That's fair enough.
Otherwise, the children would remain here.
Okay, cause it wasn't explicit in the way it was worded, I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Question,
And
so
then
our,
the second.
yeah, wait, before you
Oh,
leave
yeah.
that, so our current policy is if a student is here because the parents are teachers or a parent is teacher, they're here for the duration as long as the parent is still
Employed.
a teacher, employed. How about siblings? Siblings?
You mean if somebody comes in, this year,
No,
if-
how about if the sibling is when the sibling comes in kindergarten, is that an automatic
No.
in?
No,
Okay,
it is
so
not.
we're just, the automatic in is the person who already is enrolled, the kid who's already enrolled.
Yes. In fact, we've notified families that because of kindergarten enrollment last year and the uncertainty this year, we will not accept anybody into kindergarten this year. So if somebody's already here and has a sibling that is due to enter kindergarten, they will not enter Cohasset next year.
That seems reasonable to me, and I was just concerned that if someone's here, that they can't be bounced out.
No, the letter
No,
that was
that
sent
was the
out
original letter.
specified that.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
this
perfect.
is something very separate. This is in the event, if you notice it says applies only to the programs and services. Enrollment applies only to those programs and services that are provided within the Cohasset Public Schools. If the superintendent of schools determines that a student has needs that cannot be met within the programs here in our district, the parent or guardian of the student involved must secure those services from the community in which the child resides or lives.
Makes sense.
That's all.
Okay.
But we are not asking them to leave. That is completely different from what this policy is. This is just suggesting that if a child is enrolled and suddenly would require substantial services that we cannot give this child to be productive as a student, and they would require an out-of-district placement, we would then require the parent to bring their child back to the community in which they
And
live.
address it there. Okay, then my second question was just about personnel.
I'm not, I'm still on that one.
Okay.
So, you have a student who is in a program that we have here, and then some issues crop up, and let's say we're already committed to that student, and the student may need out-of-district placement because some new issues have come up to make their situation much more compelling for out-of-district placement. So what happens then?
We would ask the parent to go back to their community they live in and to bring their child back to their community, because there's a possibility the community they live in might have a program for their child, but we would not. We would not have the child the child would no longer be in our district technically. They would be outside of our district.
But let's say we educated that child from kindergarten, first, second, and third grade, this crops up in fourth grade.
We would ask them to go back to their district.
How about if the district doesn't have anything?
The district would still have to take care of the child.
Is that according to this, to state law? Is that, comply with state and federal law?
It is my understanding after speaking with legal counsel and speaking with other superintendents across the state that if they do not have anything in their contract, they ask parents to return to their district they live in. If children's needs exceed what's in a district, if you have a child come and then suddenly needs a $200,000 a year placement, you would then have to assume the placement if you don't have a policy in place. So, but
So
we're
just
not
wanna
asking
clarify.
anybody who's enrolled, who's using our services and are able to utilize all of our services.
Yeah,
We're not
totally, I
saying
understand.
you can't come if they're already here. This
I understand.
forthcoming September, we've informed faculty that we're not looking to enroll anybody at the kindergarten level right now.
So my other question was about personnel. Does that mean,
Currently, the personnel who have that benefit in their contracts are teachers, ESPs, and custodians.
okay, thanks.
Teachers, ESP,
And custodians.
So that, those are the ones who have it in their contract. So the ones who don't, the ones who don't.
Secretaries and cafeteria, the
Don't have it in
cafeteria
their
workers do not. And I don't know why I inherited those contracts, so I don't know why. It's those and not the others.
So, we put this policy in, we put it into the teachers' handbooks when they come, or into their packets when they come.
It would be in your handbook, not theirs.
Yes, but they need to have it explained to them also.
Mhm.
So it would be helpful for them to have it in with their information packet that they receive at the beginning of each school year. So, as Dr. Lieb says, somebody comes here for kindergarten, first, second, and third grade, and in fourth grade develops some kind of an emotional situation that they have to go elsewhere for services. How ironclad is this policy to protect this school district against those parents suing us to have their children remain here?
There's never anything ironclad.
Yeah, you can always
Never.
sue.
You can have it in the teachers' bargaining agreement and the ESP's bargaining agreement and the custodian's bargaining agreement, but next to that, where it's not, you would then have to have a policy that would certainly take care in the event. We also, if we can't service the children, it's possible their own district can, so.
Okay. I mean, I certainly understand the intent.
Mhm.
It's a good intent, but I'm concerned that people might.
I mean, legally, they can always challenge it, but you're not denying the services, it's just the services always provided from the home district.
Right.
Particularly if it's already available in the district.
In the district.
Yeah. Or if
But a
it's
lot
out
of
of
times
district,
it's not.
if it's out of district, then they're not even
Right.
going to be in our
Right.
district, so therefore, it should, in my view, should default to their home district.
Right, and building on that, I mean, it's really it's a perk we're offering, right? And therefore, the obligation is always at the home district. This is a benefit to employees.
Right.
And I think a benefit can be revoked according to a policy. So, I mean, certainly anyone can challenge anything like you said, but that would be our defense.
No, it makes sense.
but then
We just gotta be clear. So it's not clear, this is the first certificate, we don't have
The
anything like
first
this.
read.
First read.
But we don't have anything like this written.
No.
No,
Has it ever come up as an issue?
come up in the contract.
Okay.
It, superintendents have had the discussion, certainly.
And it doesn't have to be negotiated in the faculty contract, or
You
it
can
does?
ask to negotiate, you don't have to negotiate a policy for the school committee, no.
Got it, got it.
But they may negotiate in the future contracts. Yeah.
Let me ask you, Pastor Miller, is there any tuition involved with the, simply with the children of staff?
No.
No.
Can I speak to that?
Yes.
We can't do that because it would mimic school choice and we're not a school choice district. If we take children from other school districts here and try to charge them, then we become a school choice place. And that, we've already turned that down over and over and over again because it wouldn't work, particularly with our growing enrollment.
Okay. Yes.
Rebecca Simstead, Legacy Lane. Could we go back, Barbara, for a second? You mentioned that no incoming kindergartners could come in for next year. Is that a new policy that we're implementing?
That is for the teachers received a letter this year.
Is that open, for example, if we don't get the kindergarten enrollment, if there's some windows in there, or is that a firm no for next year? Is there any room, and is this a concern that we're going to be losing some of these fabulous teachers because there are teachers who are teaching here because of that benefit?
Well, I'll start with, no teacher has come to say that they were in disagreement with that, so I'll start with that. It's not that we wouldn't consider it, but in view of the fact that the late enrollment last year came so late in August, I think it's very risky. It's not to say if somebody came the first week of September and say we only had 80 students enrolled. We know we already have more than that, so I'm gonna use the number 80. So if we only had 80 students enrolled and school's open and it's obvious we're not gonna be filling up with another 40 students, and somebody came to me, that would be time to consider it, but I wouldn't consider it this early on, out of concern that we might have the same situation in September. So according to the way the contract is written currently for teachers now, it is certainly up to, it's my decision whether students should come in or not, so I have to look at the enrollments. And so if students are here right now, that's one thing, but I can say in fairness that if somebody came and said, I wanna enroll my child into 5th grade next year, I'll probably have to say no because the numbers are already high enough within that it would not be a good idea to continue to add to the class, particularly when we don't know who's moving in or not. If 20 kids moved out, that might be something, but for the moment, I would be saying no to 5th graders coming in. So, and teachers are aware of that because that was the letter they received.
And you did not receive feedback based on that letter?
I got some thank yous for sending out the letter. And it was mostly from those who had concerns who already had a child here. So. Did I answer everything? Okay. So, if there are no other questions you want, are you looking, Mr. Anibane, you brought something up about the wording, are you concerned about the wording here then? Because this is a first reader.
I just wanted to make sure that there was one comprehensive document that had the policy. So if there's something out there in a letter that sort of supplements this, I think it should just be included.
Right, well, the only thing you have to think about is the current letter that went out to the faculty now are for the students present. So there are students who will graduate over the coming years, which will mean you'll have to continually refine the policy based on that.
This just doesn't say though what the letter says, right, which is that the.
Because it's very separate, this is a policy for everybody coming in, who's currently here and then coming in the future, that's why I didn't note the letter.
So I guess my only question is, and if you think it's clear, then it's fine, but my question is,
Put a line in that says those who are presently enrolled will be offered that opportunity for the
for the duration, and once you're enrolled, you can stay, given that it's within this Cohasset
Okay.
services.
I can make an adjustment for next week.
But the second part's important to
But this policy pertains to any special services that the children need.
Right.
The letter that Barbara sent out previous to the holidays was about enrollment. It's not about cost for special services. It's two distinct issues.
So there's another policy statement related to this
No,
issue?
No,
So
just
that's
the
what I'm
letter.
saying.
No,
We
no.
need to put together.
those two, they're kind of parallel.
Right, our policy
But
needs to.
they're totally separate issues.
Right, I just think our policy needs to address two things. It needs to address the point about, services are limited to what the school provides, and if they doesn't provide it, you have to go back to your home district.
Right.
And then secondly, once you're here, you can stay the duration,
However, if that child develops issues.
provided that the services are provided within the system.
Right, and,
Here.
right.
I
This-
think that's a good point. I think all that needs to be done is one more sentence added to the
Exactly.
first paragraph.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, simple.
It's one more sentence added to the first paragraph. I can even tell you the sentence, but I don't wanna over control the situation.
Thank you. All right, let me, work on that, and I'll have it in your packet for next week. I believe that packet has to be ready tomorrow. Maybe it'll be a little late this week.
I just think that'll make it clear.
Nope, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's
Even if it's someplace else, this is, we're addressing the issue. Your first paragraph is talking about all kids anyway, the second paragraph is talking about more on the district placement issues, but the first is talking about what we were all thinking. And
Right.
you just, by one more sentence, you're really summing it up, tying the ribbon, and making a knot.
No, I understand. That's the purpose of a first read.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
it's the rough draft.
It's not
So
a
we'll get to
crime.
read it again next week.
That's right. And perhaps the week after that.
Right.
Now we're taking up the calendar
3 weeks in a
again.
row.
All right, so the next thing in your packet, I was asked to include was a memo from Mr. Onyebane that was sent out, and I might turn it over to Mr. Onyebane if he doesn't think I'm putting him, you know, putting on the spot there, but maybe you can address your own memo.
Sure. Let me start by saying I was a high school varsity wrestler.
What class did you wrestle in?
So basically, this memo was just designed to address the concerns that parents had from the 2 meetings previous. Really, it was just a summary of things that I think now we've developed, and come a long way with in deciding how we want to ultimately propose the budget. So, I don't think we need to reiterate unless there's someone that has a specific point. But my only point was, to just note is, again, how important it is for us to demonstrate, the needs of the school, balance that against the costs, and get the, political momentum and political will, to get the budget approved. I think we will all, end up casting a vote, but, I think we're all in agreement, I can speak for myself, that the budget that we'd like to propose, which probably is this, document here, is balanced and, appropriate, and I think we need to make sure that we have the political will to get it passed. And that just means more involvement from the parents, you know, and then of course, this schedule of activities, sometimes it can be discouraging. Sarah and I went to an advisory committee, Jean and Paul were there, at least, as well as Barbara did, and nothing was mentioned at all about the budget. So, you know, it's on here as a discussion, and all these meetings may or may not have the meat that we're looking for, but I think, you know, we'll just try to stay in close touch to make sure that people are aware of the potential meetings where the topic will come up.
I just have one quick question. Was this sent out via email?
I sent it to, a distribution list, the people that were here.
Okay, so
and
you
signed
did
their
send
name.
it out.
I sent it, and then I don't know if it was sent any other way, just the, okay. Yeah. It was, and it was, I think the header's on here, whenever it was sent, was that
It says
date.
February 16th, that's the date.
Yes.
I just thought the committee should see that and, you know, review it, you know, this in open session. Yeah.
Okay, just a few comments here. David is Mr. It's my understanding when published articles about per pupil expenditure, they include other things that our total budget did not include. Is that correct? So this number is lowballed because of that, per pupil expenditure, I believe, because in the data that
This
is
addresses
published-
that actually.
Yes.
This is highball.
Yeah, I
Not
realize
low.
that.
This
So
number
then-
includes, health insurance or.
This doesn't include.
It does,
Oh,
yes.
it does, you
Yes.
already
We use
got
the
those
higher of the
numbers?
two numbers.
Yeah.
So you got the numbers from David?
Well, actually, Katie, it was nice to send them along. The,
Well,
the-
you can get
but
these
they're the same
numbers
from
off
you.
the DESI website.
So,
So
yeah,
they're
so
all
this is from Desi, yes.
Well,
Yeah.
it's actually from us to DESI.
Yeah, the
from DESI.
13,524 sounds similar, to what I remember. But, they averaged the out-of-district placements when they did that?
Yes,
They
yeah.
had that in there too?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
so it seemed like the DESI number that I remember, 13,524.
The lower one, just so you know,
And-
Helene, is 11,100.
Correct. Right,
The
right,
FY
right.
13 number just came out, I think, yesterday.
Oh, okay, good.
And that
Right.
number is 13,478, so it's
Right.
actually went down a little bit.
And that's actually lower than the average for the state per
Correct.
pupil spending.
But, yeah, I like the scattergrams, I love scattergrams, I think they're really great. I spend time looking at scattergrams all the time. But, what I thought was also very important is comparing us with, the top 20 school districts in Massachusetts and per pupil expenditures. I think that's really important to include. A lot of the articles that have been published include that, so I would do that. I would just add that to that. You could even do the top 20, because if you look at it like Dr. Schubert has stated in the past, many of them are regional schools that are ahead of us, and, some charter schools. And I think if you took those out, at one point we were in the top 12, we were the most economical out of everybody in the top, 10 or 12. So that would be really helpful.
That's a great idea, and so, in other words, instead of charting by schools that are plus or minus 20% of our size,
Correct.
top 20 schools, and.
Oh, yeah, because you wanna, you gotta go by quality
Yeah,
here.
I agree.
Quantity, quality, I think, there are schools that are a size that are nowhere near our rating
Right.
in this, Massachusetts state grant.
Yeah, let's do that, good.
So, that's what usually we've done in the past, and that's what usually the articles that are published, and that with the realtors in Cohasset go by, and who knows. But educationally, it's helpful to us because we have a quality product, the education that we provide our students, and we're doing it, incredibly well for a very reasonable fee compared to schools that are in our same academic stratosphere. So I think that would be helpful.
So I guess the only question is how you would define those 20 schools.
They're already defined,
because you've
there's
got-
been articles out, it
Right,
was
I mean,
in the
you-
Boston.
There's like 5 different versions of the
Yeah,
top
they're
20.
already in US
To your
schools
point.
today,
Right,
well, I
I mean,
forget which one
But
had it.
there's several metrics and several.
The
ways of-
metrics that are usually established, I know statistics
But you've got
is
US
garbage
you
in,
have US
garbage
News
out.
and World Report, you
Correct.
have Boston Magazine, you've got,
Yes.
per pupil cost by the.
Totally,
DESI.
this is what people go by, they
Those are
usually,
good.
they'll.
You can Google them all.
Yeah.
It's good to see that all the time.
I mean, you'd have to,
I like to chart 'em all,
you'd have to
you know?
put in a fair number too.
Yeah, they usually go by how many kids go on to college, also they go by AP, 3.0 and higher, and they do it per capita, those type of things. I think there's about, some of them are
Yeah.
shared.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, good, we'll work on it.
I have, 2 more points, and one of them is a question, and one of them is a caution, that under kindergarten staffing and third grade staffing, you mentioned decreasing staff from 5 to 6 kindergarten, and decreasing staff from 5 to 6 third grade.
Let's see, where are you?
It should have been increasing.
Revised budget that proposed decreasing staff
Oh,
from
revisit, from
yeah, yeah,
5
yeah.
to 6.
Right, revisit budget. that
But no, the
proposed-
word is
It
decrease.
should have said from 6 to 5, right?
So that's,
Yeah.
it's kind of
That's-
misleading.
well,
So
it's
I
not.
just wanna make sure that we're all on the same
Yeah, that's
plane here.
kind of a typo, yep, 6 to 5.
And then, also, the special education staffing, how did you get the $51,000 cost?
So,
Is that are you saying
went
that's a
through the-
cost or a cost
That-
saving?
No, that's the cost for the adjustment council that we were gonna, add to the middle high school. It's like $51,094.
Okay,
That was just the net difference
was the net
between
difference.
eliminating the two team chairs and.
And adding a.
Yeah.
But we also,
Yeah.
but we also spoke about adding a coordinator in there, and that's not captured here then.
Well,
So the coordinator
the
would be
coordinator-
in place of
Right.
the team chairs.
Right.
So if, when we add the team chairs back in, the coordinator is
Coordinator goes
eliminated
to
and
this,
we're
is
asking
not
for the
needed.
addition of the adjustment counselor, which is the 51,000.
Correct, we're
Right.
going back to the
Okay,
original
so-
plan plus the adjustment.
so the 804 number that we're presenting tonight
Started with A,
includes
we had a
the
B, and
adjustment
we took out
counselor,
B,
and
and
includes
we
the
put
two
A
team
back.
chairs,
Chairs and
That
but it does
was-
not
coordinator.
include
Then it
the
would-
coordinator, that came
Okay,
out.
so
Right.
this
Oh,
is
you're trying
two
to
team
capture the
chairs
difference.
Right.
Exactly.
and the
Adjustment
adjusted
counselor.
counselor, okay, all right, that
The
explains it.
coordinator came out, and
Cause I'm
the
thinking,
halftime
how do
secretary.
those, all those
came out.
salaries come out to?
Because it got confusing.
It did get
When you start
confusing.
adding,
Right.
subtracting, and
Right.
adding.
Okay.
Yes.
And you have to,
Can I?
the
one more-
Yep,
halftime
go ahead.
Right, oh no, I figured that from this, but.
One other, oh, let's. Just one other really quick point is, I just thought it was noteworthy, I'd never really done this study before. We always think of ourselves as a very small school, but we're actually just about average.
Correct.
You know, 60% are in
Right.
bigger, smaller, 40% of the other
I used
direction.
to
can't
say
remember.
that to people all the time
Yeah,
on these
60.
board meetings.
Yeah,
And
kind of
you guys,
interesting.
I threw the numbers out, I said we were in the low end of average. And people just heard the low part, not the average part.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes, I mean, 1,100 is low. I mean, that's some of our neighborhood school district. But yes, we've always been in the average range, but kind of on the low side of average.
In population only.
In population.
Right, that's right.
Right.
Quality and everything else
And
with
population
way up.
superior. Because they were looking, you know, when you weren't here for this, there was, you know, this goes back about 2 years ago or so, when we were doing the whole topic about regionalization, and one of the school districts kind of wanted to, you know, join with us. And so, then we did some studying about the regionalization thing, and we're not considered small. We're considered, you know, in the average, but still in the low part of average, right, Aaron?
Sarah McSweeney, 14 Summer. Paul, thank you for the email. I think it was really comprehensive, and we did talk about it at the last meeting, that I had said that 2 meetings prior, you had set the expectation that you were gonna deliver on the data and the timeline, so I think it was helpful. One comment I have is it didn't, again, have to get it to everybody, not just people in the room, because it just puts people at a disadvantage, and less knowledge just creates confusion and misset expectations. So, perhaps someone could take an action here on the committee, or perhaps it's Barb, I don't know who, about kind of articulating what's going on now, because hearing Jean ask a question about the numbers, and you're very knowledgeable, you've been doing this a long time, the average citizen may not be
It was
able to
these
go through that.
specific numbers though.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, they might
Yeah.
not understand the specific calculations. And I think really, again, what's the goal after this meeting? Is the goal to carry forward the budget that Barbara's proposing of 804, thank you, my accountants. 804, if that's the goal, and everyone here is supporting it, I think I asked this the last meeting, then let's get a message out to the community about what is the ask of the community, right? Is the ask to go to the budget advisory meeting, the other advisory meeting, you gotta be clear about what the ask is out of the community, because if it is to, get the mindset of the new town manager and the selectmen on board with what the real parent community and teacher community thinks is necessary, let's do that, right? And let's have an intelligent, articulate dialogue around that. I think we just gotta be clear about that as we move forward into the next 60 days, because it's critical. I think what nobody really wants is to go to town meeting and have it be spill out on the floor, because that's probably not really great. Have it be much more well orchestrated and get the key stakeholders that maybe don't understand the complexities of the issues. Because if you guys are putting forward the budget, you're the experts and you're supporting it, then it should be a really easy conversation with people like the town manager and the selectmen and the advisory board and I don't know who else I'm missing, the capital folks. Let's have the dialogue with them now and get them on board with this, because I think that's the least successful outcome to have it be a town meeting. We definitely have parents that we don't ask to come to every meeting here tonight, because time is really expensive and people have lots of priorities. But we are teeing not people to get around that they need to be at town meeting to vote, and should this become a bit complicated, that we're gonna have representation there. But let's be clear about what the ask is after this meeting.
I think we would like to present our budget first before we get ahead of the cart, so.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
Helene Childs, 73 Pond Street. So that means at the advisory committee meeting the other night, I think the chairman had set forth a tentative calendar of when he wanted school committee, when you would present to advisory.
Yes.
Would then you want parents to be at that advisory when you present?
Should you think it's in your best interest, yes.
Okay.
You're welcome, yes, you're welcome.
Yes.
It's an open meeting,
Mhm.
and it certainly is very important to show support for the schools and for the budget and what is needed in the district, the expansion of the curriculum, expansion of the sheer numbers that we have, the support that this budget we're about to potentially go forth with is extraordinarily helpful, yes.
Okay, so to that point then, I mean, I know that I've checked the calendar, the town calendar, and you checked the town calendar. To that point then, would it be helpful to send another email, out regarding the dates, the timeline and the date of when you all are presenting to advisory committee?
We can do that.
I think that should be.
What is the date?
We haven't been given a formal date yet.
There's nothing been
We've
Right, I
been
know,
posted.
given a series of dates when meetings will take place. The actual date that we're being asked to present has not been determined.
Right,
If you
no,
notice,
that's
we're getting
yeah.
more and more frequent Blackboard messages from me when meetings are taking place in town. Sometimes they've been posted on the website, sometimes I know in advance and they haven't been posted, which is why I say, please go back and check the postings regularly if you want to see what's in the agenda, because we don't have that information at the time, even though we might be aware that there's a meeting taking place. So I think I sent out, in fairness to folks, that there's a budget meeting tomorrow night, but at the time it wasn't posted, I didn't know what the agenda would look like. I looked today, I noticed the agenda is now there, so if folks are interested, they can certainly go see what's on that agenda.
And I believe the advisory committee wanted to wait until the school committee
Right.
voted their budget and then
Right.
meet after
Right.
that.
But you guys obviously will know when they put you on the agenda to
Yes.
come to
They will
present to
tell
them.
us. Yes, they will
So
tell
when
us.
you know,
Yes.
we should know.
Yeah, and
Yes.
yes, and what we need to do is, we know some of the concerns of the advisory, we need to be able to do our homework and have all their concerns, figured out and answered in all the math part, really, totally. And we know their concerns about the present budget and what's left over and what's left over last year, what's left over this year. And some people are feeling that, the budget is, that we have a lot more money, and that we don't need, over 800,000 more additional. And that is common thought, and we really need to be able to, convince people of where we're at and to address their, comments about that very specifically with the hard math, hard numbers. I mean, we did the kindergarten thing, we know about the 200,000 on that, but some of the other things in terms of how this year is ending, how last year ended, how this year is ended, and, money left over and what goes on, that type of thing. It has to be very transparent, because the word on the street is that we don't need it.
Well, I disagree with the word on the street. I think we do need it. I think that the
Correct.
monies
Well, we have to
the
be
monies that are,
defending it.
those monies are not necessarily left over. They're prepayments for special education and for supplies, which has been done every year for the last
Correct.
probably 30 years.
David
since-
knows what we need to
Since
do.
the, Proposition 2.5.
David knows what we need to do, but we have to come in there, and we really have to do a good
We
job.
will, yes.
So, Katie Dugan, 100 Blackbrook Road, I agree with the point you're making, Helene, but to be very honest, we have to set the big picture table stakes here for people to understand, and that's one of the things that I think in terms of packaging, once you have agreed as a committee on a budget, there needs to be not only the big picture table stakes around the work that you had done, Paul, with the scattergram, the headcount growth relative to the budget growth. There needs to be a strategy of 3, 4, 5 really high level kind of pictures and visuals for people so they understand what has led up to this point, because we haven't gotten ourselves in this situation just overnight. And the fact that this is a tipping point needs to be made clear, and then you need to get into the weeds. that unless you set the table stakes of why we are here today and the big picture of where this could take us, you're gonna get dragged down. And that's the thing that I worry most about, is kind of getting everybody on the same page macro before you jump into the micro of transparency around supplies and what's that number. Because what I don't wanna have happen is I don't wanna have $200,000 of free cash flow at the end of next year and have third graders and kindergartners and fifth graders that have missed out on a full year of real education. And so I wanna make sure that we do this well in terms of setting the macro picture for everybody and then jump into the weeds and be able to defend the numbers. But I think having those macro discussion points that you as a team and we as parent support can address consistently to constituencies in town is so critical. And I'm happy to take that offline, but I think that is just, you can't jump into fight the weeds discussion without setting the table first.
No, I agree. I mean, first we have to present the budget, so. Then we have to vote on it, and then we have to.
You would've voted on it.
then we have to vote on it.
My kids are home without a babysitter, so. I'm emailing them currently to make sure they're okay.
Sorry, so thank you, Paul, for that number. I think that
And we'll
is
just
concise
add,
enough and adds a nice
comparative.
point of view to the discussion that's been ongoing, what's involved in building a budget, what's involved in the several years, where the district is presently, where we'd like to go. So next up is the mid-year goal.
I was going to ask, cause that might be a somewhat lengthy discussion, and it is now 9 o'clock at night.
Why don't we
We've
go
had
to-
folks sitting
yeah.
here, and I would respectfully ask, could we possibly put that on the agenda next week so you
Sure.
can
I would
really
ask
cover the budget?
a motion to move the mid-year goal review to the next,
I agree.
agenda meeting.
So moved, we can move the mid-year goal review to the next meeting, which is
Next week.
Wednesday,
Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Then why don't we go to the, finances warrant, 1415 Sierra. Ask for a motion to approve 1415 Sierra.
I'll make a motion to approve warrant 14-15S.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And any discussion? And I need a voice roll call vote.
Gina Stino.
Paul Schubert.
Aye, Paul Newpany.
Or Mary Goldberg.
Thank you. Passes 5-0. Next up, I'll turn it over to you, Dave.
Do you wanna talk about the surplus TVs?
Yeah, do the surplus.
Yeah,
That's
Have
fast.
one quick.
Oh, I'm sorry, the
So-
surplus TVs and TV stands, sorry.
We have approximately 40 TVs and TV stands that are old and we're not using in the classrooms any longer. They're using new technology to teach, so a lot of them are just throughout the schools. We'd like to be able to donate. I mean, we did try advertising them, but there's no want for this type of TV. So if we can donate them, we can, move them out. I know Salvation Army takes them and
Okay.
we'll, get them to the right people. So we're
Ask
just
for a
asking for a motion
to approve the surplus TVs and TV stands for donation purposes.
I'll make a motion to approve, donation of the, 40 TVs and TV stands.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And is there a roll call vote?
Gina Stino.
Aye, Paul Schubert.
I'm Mary Goldberg.
Aye, Paul Newpany.
I'm Lee.
5-0, passes. So next up, now.
Okay, now, so you've all waited for this. I'm sorry to keep you here so late. Thank you everybody for staying so late. We appreciate your support. So tonight's proposed budget, restores all the cuts that we talked about from last week when we met. I'll just go through some things quickly. So this budget now, it has an increase of $804,864 over last year, or 4.96%. And it includes the cuts that we had said we were gonna take, that we restored. We'll talk about that too. Again, we've all seen this slide before. This is the slide that shows kindergarten salaries that we took out of FY14 budget, the half of the salaries of the 5 positions. And if we were to keep them in, we would show an increase of 3.5% or $575,559 for FY15. So that was our choice. I mean, we did choose to do that to be able to meet the town requirements. That was one of the things that we did to meet the requirements for this year. But when we looked at it again, we said, well, legally, by law, we're supposed to offer free half-day kindergarten, so therefore those half-day salaries should be put back into the budget. And that's what we did with this budget for for the $804,000. This next slide is the assumptions. I know we've talked about the assumptions before, but they've changed a little bit because we're restoring those cuts. So again, we're assuming a 4.96% increase or an amount of $804,864 over FY14. This budget is not a level funded budget. It includes increases in contractual obligations, fixed costs, and new positions. This budget does restore the one teaching position in grade 3. It restores the one teaching position in kindergarten, allowing us 6 full-day kindergarten classes and 1 half-day class. It also keeps in the budget the additional adjustment counselor position from grades 6 through 12. It does remove the special ed coordinator position because we did put back in here the SPED team chair positions.
Right.
So this budget does include that. It also includes the middle school foreign language teaching position due to projected increase in enrollment. And it also includes an additional ESP at middle school. And not to forget the .5 position at the high school, foreign language, that's also put into this budget. Circuit breaker offset is expected to be $505,263, which helps defray special out-of-district tuition costs. So that is funding that we receive now that we will use to offset FY15. This budget still assumes a stipend of $5,000 each to be paid for a Deer Hill staff member and an Osgood staff member to help with assistant principal duties. They'll help with test coordination, discipline, building management, and so forth. And it also will help the principals focus more on the new evaluation instrument, because that's a big time-consuming process now. We're still assuming unemployment benefits at the same, the $50,000. We haven't changed that. And we are still assuming the purchase of middle school textbooks for social studies and math. Any questions on that? No. So this next slide shows again the projections. Just quickly, it shows the sixth position restored at full day kindergarten. And if we have an enrollment of 113 students, that would bring the class size down to 18.8. It also shows the restored 6th position in grade 3. And if we are anticipating 119 students, that would bring the class size down to 19.83. So really that's what we're showing in this slide. We still don't know what full day kindergarten students will look like. I know today the latest is 87 students have enrolled so far.
Which is ahead of last year.
Yeah, this time of the year is ahead of last year. The next slide which we're showing is some of the considerations we look at as we build the FY15 budget. I mean, I know we've talked about this before. We try to maintain class size. We try to prepare for increased enrollment and for population shifts. We seek highly qualified teachers and administrators. We want to preserve the quality of programs and services that that enable our students to meet high standards, so forth. The way we budget now is we've done this always in the past. We start our budget with a zero base. we look at what our needs are each year, we don't add to what the budget was the previous year. We eliminate outdated efforts, we add in new curriculum where we need to and so forth. You know, as last year we added in the math, the new math, program. And this year we're planning to add the new math program in middle school, so there's an even transition there. Those are some of the things we do. As you know, we implemented and trained new online teacher evaluation tool this year. We've had some professional development to provide for empowering writers and handwriting without tears curriculums at Osgood and Deer Hill schools. And the list goes on. You can read all that on your at your leisure, unless you have any questions. No? Okay. This next slide again shows, we've seen this before, it shows all our other accounts besides the town appropriation, all the revolving accounts, grant accounts, all other funds that go into operating the school budget. The fee accounts like student transportation, athletic fees, kindergarten tuition fee, preschool tuition fee, and so forth. And all of our grants, federal and state grants too. Totaling approximately $2,021,000. This slide is actually out of order, it's at the back also, but we'd like to show this slide because this is important because of the salaries that we are a service business. Most of our budget goes towards salaries. We show about 78% of salary, or our salaries made up of our budget. So when we have to cut, we don't have many other areas to cut, but we try to always keep the staff in place and cut other areas, but as you know, 78% of it is made up of salary, so that's really the point of this slide. Any comments or questions on this? No? Okay. I'll go into a little bit of the district-wide detail to show what has changed a little bit. So overall, district-wide, which is made up of transportation, special ed transportation, the business office, the technology department, school superintendent office, the school committee expenses. Overall, we're asking for 2.9% less over FY14. But if you look at the detailed pages on page 12, you can see the unemployment expense, again, we're just level funding at $50,000. Tuition for teachers, the reimbursement for teacher tuition and teacher conference reimbursement are by contract, $45,000 for tuition reimbursement and $10,000 for conference reimbursement. So those numbers by contract really can't be adjusted. Under school committee, there's a couple of differences. Under the other expenses in advertising, we're finding that we don't need to advertise in the Boston Sunday Globe anymore for those positions because people aren't looking at it. So we're using School Spring a lot, which is saving us quite a bit of money. So you can see why we've adjusted that down to $14,379. But then the next line we've increased by $10,000 on our legal services, and that's really because union negotiations will be starting next year, so we'll need that. And if you look at just the special education, page 13, just a couple of things there. We're budgeting for out-of-district tuition of $1.446 million. That's what we know now. That's current students. And we also have an offset of the circuit breaker of the $505,263. That's money again coming in this year, so that we know that is a real figure. So that's why we like to have that year lag behind, so because we know that that number fluctuates from year to year, the percentage of what comes in. I don't think there's really anything else in that.
The only other,
Anything else?
the only other difference was the supplies and materials. Instead of being at the building level, it's now centralized.
Yeah,
They were spread out at the building level.
yeah, so that was one change we made, yeah. So that's really just a movement from one line item to another line item. And then at the bottom section, the business office, really the only change there is it includes the part-time assistant that we hired early on in the fall.
Mhm.
A portion of her salary is there, not, you know, she's not paid totally out of the business office, she's paid through athletics and, facilities use also. Under the next page 14. District-wide technology, really, that doesn't include any capital expenditures in technology. It's really for, what we have budgeted here are for, replacement of parts or miscellaneous repairs to computers. We also budget here, for under contract services, a lot of our licenses, like Kurzweil and Teletools license, our Destiny software license, which is our library management software. Blackboard Connect license is part of that line item. Our iPass contract, which is our database, student database, is part of that line item. So all those type of things make up that contract service, line item. Connected, internet, web page hosting, it's all there.
Dave, excuse me, can you tell me why that went up 20,000? I'm sure that it's because it came from another area that you added into that.
For the supplies and
Under the contract
materials,
services, ConnectEd and internet, there's a
Well,
$20,000 increase.
because we're trying to bring them into one, the technology
So you
department
took
instead
something
of.
from another cost center and
Right,
put it
yes.
in
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
just so that everybody understands when they're looking at these different line items, why
Right.
something would jump like that.
And then we're adding, some items too. We have now the new teacher evaluation tool, so
Right.
we have to pay, that's actually $5,200 a year for that Baseline Edge, that software program.
Software for that.
Yeah, so there's some new things in there too.
Yeah, how come it doesn't show the .6 school side of the director's salary for district-wide
Because
technology?
that's all, the
Comes up.
director's salary now is at the top of the budget.
Before the split.
Before the split.
Got it. The whole
And
thing?
The whole thing and
But
then
I thought we
then
had
the
to pay
split.
.6.
Well, we do, you basically do pay your portion, cause the split happens before we split out the new revenue that's
Got
left
it.
over.
Interesting.
Take it out before they get it.
Yeah, it's taken off the top.
Yeah, is
And
there
then the
anything
new
else taken
revenue
off
is-
the top
what
besides,
else?
is there anything else taken off the top?
Well, all like the health
Health
insurance,
insurance,
yes, yeah.
workers' comp insurance that we
Yes,
pay, building insurance, all that is taken off the top.
That's interesting,
Yeah.
how they do that.
It's kinda like
And
the
then,
cost of doing
and
business.
then what's left over,
Right,
then it's split between the town and the schools,
Yeah,
the
60,
61-39%, yeah.
But we're still paying it anyway, they're just taking it off the top.
Right, cause you're not seeing it in your
Correct.
bottom line budget, right. You're paying your portion, basically. Page 15, transportation. Really, there's really no change, in transportation, except for regular ed. We included that one new hire that we did in the fall, and that person is still in the budget. The additional, driver.
Yep,
That
that's
we
right.
hired over the fall. So really, that's the only, new thing. We're not, anticipating any, a lot of extra fees, but, we'll see, that always helps when that comes in. And then on to, Joseph Osgood School. So overall, Joseph Osgood School has seen an increase of 10.3% over FY14. And the big reason for that is the kindergarten salaries that we brought back into the budget. Half of those six salaries that are there. So on page, I don't know if Bob wants to talk a little bit on page 18. It's really it's just really showing that kindergarten teaching salaries come back into the budget. You can see the difference in FY14 compared to FY15. So FY15 shows 3 positions plus the half-time position that was already there. And that's really the only change under salaries. Salaries are all done by union contract, and their increases and step increases and column changes and so forth. On page 19, really the only difference is the Envision math consumables that we're ordering for next year. As you recall, you can see in FY13 we pre-purchased Envision math texts because we had to make some cuts in the salary in the supply lines going into FY14, so we pre-purchased those, but we still need the consumables for next year.
Right.
Yeah.
And no significant staffing changes.
No. Yeah, the six teachers in there. Really the staffing is staying the same. Just on to page 21. Just to bring you up to the electricity utility line item. That you see has gone down. That was because we've taken advantage of the National Grid. There was an efficiency program we took advantage of.
We talked about that.
And it was a rebate program, so we had to pay a portion of that rebate, and they gave us money back, but now we're seeing the benefits, I think.
I know.
So we should save between 10 and 12% a year on our electricity bill, just from
And we
that.
have better monitoring, better shutting in or off.
Yeah, we have,
Yes, the whole thing.
you know, like when you leave the room, the lights go out, that
Right,
type of thing.
that was all added.
And we're still working with, the Alternative Energy Committee for
Correct.
other programs that we can take advantage of. We're still working on the solar and so forth, So really, that's the big changes in Osgood. Any questions at all? No. Deer Hill. So Deer Hill, you see a slight increase of 0.7%. All right, Deer Hill. I think the big change in Deer Hill is, the grade 3 position is restored. One ESP will be moving to middle school. And, I don't know if you wanted to talk about any of the supplies or anything that is different that's going on.
That's awesome.
Deer Hill's just gonna sit here quiet.
Yeah, Deer Hill's quiet. No? Well, I'll mention on Deer Hill again, the electricity account, you see that it's gone down a little bit, again, for that efficiency program that we took advantage of. So that always helps. Again, Deer Hill is increasing by 0.7% over last year. Good Deer Hill.
Practically.
Competition.
You
helps.
did.
It's like Survivor.
Yeah, you know. Guys are getting tired. Okay, on to middle school.
We should have a contest for the greenest school.
The greenest, yeah. So middle school overall, is, proposing an increase of 10.7%. And that is because really positions that we're asking for.
Positions
So-
to reflect, as a result of
Reflect-
student enrollment.
Yes, and needs.
Mhm.
So, middle school will see 3 ESPs, one is a new position, but one is from
One's from the high school,
one
one's
is
from
from
Deer Hill.
Deer Hill School. Also the full-time, language teacher is
Yes.
part of that.
Desperately needed.
And,
And the only other big thing that would jump out at anybody in terms of materials and textbooks would be
Yeah.
the reflection of the purchase of mathematics textbooks for grades 6, 7, and 8 in line
Yeah.
216, and then the 7th and 8th grade social studies text is also a pretty high ticket number. Though I will say that both departments, working with curriculum director Louise, did a marvelous job of having really thoughtful conversations with the teachers to see what was the best vehicle and how are we gonna carry on both the math program from taking the Envision from the 5th grade, what was going to be the best match to make it a more appropriate middle school text, but really build on the successes that program has had. And they spent hours and days and teachers getting, desk copies and having really good conversation about it. So I like that it wasn't just, oh, everybody likes the old Houghton Mifflin and we'll go with that
No,
route.
but I like that there's a smooth transition now.
Mhm. So that
We
was
also
super
worked
good.
with Kathy Brooks, who spent time with them, built lessons, looked at the alignment, looked at their curriculum, and thanks to Dr. Tikiera, who allowed the 5th grade teachers to build so much of the math, they could actually go to the curriculum maps on Atlas and look and align and make a very well thought out decision. So I'm very pleased with their alignment.
Good job.
Very powerfully done.
Right.
They did a great job.
Ms. Demus, also, we had to spend money now because of the,
Common Core.
the Common Core,
Yes.
that's one
It's
area
changed.
where it really changed.
That was
As what I
that is
recall.
the one critical
Correct.
area. Social studies is also, they have included 17 more
Right.
items to their frameworks because they are now responsible for literacy as well.
Right.
So,
But
they're
math
taking
was a
a
really
big
big
hit.
change.
They're the first big hit.
Right.
Common Core.
We mentioned that that's an unfunded mandate.
I think it's also important to note, while we were doing all of this, what it's done is, aside from having, the horizontal conversations that have been having at grade levels, we're having much more vertical action now, and aside from what we need to order, that's also really compiled based on the results we're currently seeing as we move vertically across.
Right. But, yeah, just a comment, for the parents, if people ask about expenses, and people will, let me tell you, I've been bombarded with calls as soon as I got the 800,000 number, it's spread around town. I talk about Common Core, I talk about enrollment increases, I talk about all these, points, we have to know them, we have to be able to respond to them, you have to have in your head 10 things right away, all set, and that's what I do, I have them in notes right by my phone, I get probably 10 calls a week about the $800,000 number right now. So, and people say thank you, I didn't really know. So hopefully I got some more support because of that. But we really just have to know this budget and the reasons why David is telling us. But a big push is the Common Core, like David said, it's an unfunded mandate.
Right.
We've had to change our math.
Just like the evaluations.
Correct, the
Same thing.
evaluation's
I mean,
been added, we added
A lot of
money because
professional
we.
development has gone into
Right,
that.
and staff had to pay some stipends because
Right.
of, freeing up time for principals to do the evaluation. It all dovetails.
Okay, good. Continue. Onto high school. So overall, high school is requesting a 6.6% increase. And most of that, again, is the half-time language teacher was requested. Putting back the team share, we put back one team share at the high school level and at the elementary level, but I believe the elementary level is actually Deerfield.
And the
the
comments,
new-
the
oh, go ahead.
comments I've been getting from parents about the team chair is very positive. We've had things for a couple of the parents in terms of IEPs and things like that, they're beginning to really work, and there's continuity, and there's much more attention, so a lot of positive feedback about that.
Good. And also the new adjustment counselor position is part of this increase too. So I don't know if you,
Yeah, I
did you
mean, high
wanna
school
talk
detail,
about any of the
in terms of the high school textbooks and materials, it's really about course enrollment, and you can see there's quite a difference in some of the numbers. I mean, the English department's going to look at what are the trade books being taught. A lot of that isn't, what we think of as traditional textbook, they're novels and such. They're looking at what's being taught, what are the numbers coming up, what really needs a replacement text, so that's why those numbers really fluctuate from year to year. And you can see that they're trying to be frugal. And math and science, when we had to adjust the budget last year, that money was removed, so you can see that last year it was zero, so we're trying to replace some texts, but certainly over a couple of subjects, geometry, algebra 2 in particular. We need new textbooks for the numbers of kids coming through. We weren't able to buy replacement or additional text last year. So that's why you see a jump in those kinds of numbers. And a big social studies number, we need, sociology books.
Right,
For that 6,900.
Could I ask just to hold till the end, let him finish up, and then go
Could
from there?
somebody just summarize the cost of the Common Core unfunded mandates at some point during this discussion?
Oh,
Because
we should
it's
could.
possible.
Yeah, that'd be
But you
nice.
have it in pieces in this budget, you already talked about what the impact is to the bottom line.
I can give you the pieces, all I can associate it with is a black hole. It's a very large expense that's been given to us, and we're trying to handle it as best we can. The pieces are, we need an assessment, every course needs 2 assessments that continue. What that looks like, we have to decide. The state has said, do it, I don't know how. So we have purchased particular assessments, we're looking at them. We had to pay a consultant to come in and work with us. That's one mandate. The other is this extensive new teacher evaluation. What we've had to do is bring in, again, consultants to help us guide us through that, along with the state, where we're traveling to workshops, trying to work through that. Also buying an online facilitator, if you will, to keep all this data that we need. We're not sure where the state is going. It's always been associated as we're flying the plane and building it at the same time, and so is the state. We're not sure where we're going. We have a new testing instrument coming in. We're told we need the technology to do it with. However, we can buy the paper piece, which is as expensive. We're not sure what that will look like. It is going to be piloted this spring and piloted again next spring. So if I'm confusing you and saying I really can't give you a budget because the state won't give us one.
That's not what I'm actually asking, I'm asking you to actually quantify
Yes.
what is already in the budget today. So I'm not asking you to project, but you clearly have a number that has come in.
It's a
that you
combination
always-
of
Right, and so
different
I'm
numbers.
asking you to sum up all these pieces, because it's not impressive when you talk about 20,000 here, 40,000 here, 100,000
Yeah.
for textbooks. You sum it up, it becomes a very compelling number when you're talking to the town about, we don't know the total number that's gonna hit us over the next couple of years, but the unplanned mandate comes in all these pieces, and if I sum it up, here's my estimate of what the impact was this year.
Right, so what I was gonna suggest to you was that during the course of this week, if you, we wouldn't be able to sum it tonight because
Yeah.
it is broken out. But I would be very happy to sit down over the next few days and say, I'll gather what we've spent this year. I'll gather what we're anticipating spending next year. We can only add those 2 figures together, and then obviously we don't know what will be forthcoming. And I would say the greatest quantity is going to be the technologies, which has gone into the hundreds of thousands. But I will be glad to do that for you.
I think that's so important to say what's gonna
Yeah,
hit the
that's not a
operating
problem.
budget.
I will take that on.
That goes to just how you're positioning what's happening in your budget. This is not in the control of the town, this is in the control of the state, and it's being imposed on you. Add on top of that the cost of how the headcount increases that added to the number of textbooks. You need to start breaking out the conversation, not by line item, but by grouping how these expenses are taken in order to really have a dialogue.
That's a much better message
Yeah,
than, which thank you, the presentation's great. The first line of your summary page, some of that's a little bit of a marketing spin that's gonna go on, which is, those are really compelling, those are must-haves, those are non-negotiables, right?
Right.
Headcount growth, you can't negotiate. Implementation of state mandates, you can't negotiate. That's probably better than the opening, which is, this is not a level funded budget, because when you first see that, you're like, whoa, this looks like it's irresponsible. There's reasons why it's not level funded, it's not because it's arbitrary spending, those are non-negotiable. That should be the opening argument, that should be articulated, and your numbers can help support that argument.
That's fine, we'll
That's
put
really,
that
really
together.
important.
Not a problem, thank you. You know, sometimes where we're sitting,
Yeah.
we understand the costs that have gone into this, we understand the cost of the Common Core, but we don't always know how it's best defined for you as a
Yeah.
community, so we'll be glad to do that.
Yeah, it's gonna help support that 804 number.
Yep.
That's all we wanna do is help support that number.
Anything else?
I don't think there's anything else
No,
remarkable.
okay. Nothing? Again, the electricity, account gone down, you'll see that, due to the efficiency program. I think that's it for high school. I don't know, do we wanna comment on athletics at all? Some of the changes? I know we're asking, this, the athletic budget is asking for an additional football assistant coach for freshman football. Girls hockey, there's an increase in ice time for girls hockey, even though we still split it with Hanover. And then, boys junior varsity ice hockey, there's money in there for ice rental and officials. So that's really the changes in athletics this time.
And I'll just make one other comment concerning that, because Mr. Ford and I have been looking at, when we look at long-term projections, we're looking at the next 2 to 3 years aside from this budget, and we're well aware that as the numbers are growing and entering the high school, presuming they'll also increase, he feels that we might have to call upon putting in freshman teams again, which I guess happened, years ago, long before I was here, but that would be an additional budget. So we're trying to figure out how to control for the costs as the numbers are coming in, and this is the first step, is adding coaches.
So again, there's our proposed budget, 17,041,896, 4.96% increase.
And again, we'll make the comment that it's not truly 4.96% because we had to, reinstate those kindergarten salaries that we had taken from the revolving account initially.
And this slide here just shows where our funding comes from. For the FY15 proposed, we are proposing $14,775,959 come from the town. Chapter 70 aid is estimated at $2,265,000, and then our other funds, revolving funds, offset funds at $2,021,000, for a total of $19,062,904.
So as Mary had mentioned earlier, that the town contribution over the past several years has declined in the total percentage of the school budget from close to 80% down to 77.9%.
Either chapter 70 has gone up a little bit, or we're relying more on other funds, offsets and so forth,
And the other important thing is if we work out the half-day kindergarten thing, the kindergarten stuff, we would have been pretty much, a lot more even on year 13, 14, 15.
Yes.
Right,
in the
yes,
3.5% all the
right,
years.
right.
I'd actually like to see that broken out, maybe with an asterisk at the bottom of that
She
page.
did it.
You mean what at the
To
beginning?
show what it would have been if
He did it
not on
page
here.
It's in the
five.
opening.
On page 5.
Oh, okay, all right,
It's
great.
right there, 3.78, 3.50,
Okay.
instead of 2.3
Is that
or
clear or
4.96.
Yeah, but it's way back before we, it's not on this page.
Cause it would've gone,
That's all.
from,
So I was looking at
Yeah.
this at the percentage.
right,
And it looks like a huge jump from 2.3 to 4.96.
right, it would've been 3.0 FY 13, 3.78 FY 14,
And
3.50 in FY 15.
3.50.
Exactly.
Right.
So that sounds a lot more even Steven to me.
Okay, yeah, it does.
Had we
And
not
jump.
removed monies from the revolving accounts last year to support the kindergarten salaries that we needed, we actually would have had a decline this year. Because last year, our numbers would have been 3.78 as the change in the year, and then this year we would have been 3.5. But because we removed those numbers, it looks like we're asking for a dramatic increase in our request, and in reality,
was
we
my
are not.
point.
What we're doing is trying to support what we're supposed to do, which is not use the revolving account to support those salaries for
Right.
time.
Right,
Right.
but what I would do, what Jean suggested, instead of it having it down here, I would have another line here.
Do it on
and
another
just-
page?
No, just another
Just add
line
it.
right under here,
Oh,
with an
yeah.
asterisk saying, with the kindergarten situation different, it would have been 3.0, 3.7, 8, and then 3.50. So
Yeah.
that visually, as the ladies pointed out, we have to do the PR piece. Educators are very not great at PR, we need some economists too, or PR people. It just
Let's
makes
go.
it,
I mean, it's the same as on the opening page though, all you gotta do is just move that up.
I know, yes it is.
It should be flipped
But-
everywhere, all
Exactly.
consistently through the
Exactly.
document, cause it's
Correct.
it's better
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
everyone
here.
at one
Yeah.
time.
Right.
Yeah, we
Did
have
you-
to listen to
Okay.
the outside.
That's why you're
people.
here, yes.
That's our value add, the
Yes,
monthly
the value is in the trust. No,
We're
we
very
think-
proud of that. But that's, Helene, that's a great point you make, that should be in the very first, that should be your opening, and footnote the larger increase. Yeah, don't show the 4.9, show the 3.78 to 3.5, and footnote the 4.9, consistently throughout the
Right.
document.
Cause I've
That should be your
had to
opening.
approve a lot of budgets in a lot of organizations that I'm involved in, and that's right away on the first page. And there's some blips because of some grant that was discontinued, God knows why. And then it makes a whole lot more sense, and then I'm thinking, oh, there's no problem with this organization, oh, there's no real issue here. It explains it right away, right up front, and then people just say, oh, okay, not a big deal.
Okay.
So are there
Well,
any
thanks.
questions from the committee thus far? What we did was certainly take into account the suggestions that have been made, and we will also put together for you as well as for the community, the numbers that really show what we've had to put through this year financially in order to meet the Common Core as well as the technological request for park, and then what we're looking at for next year.
Right.
So March 12th meeting is the meeting, that we will vote on the budget.
Yeah.
We'll have a public hearing first and then we'll vote.
And the public hearing will begin at
7, I think, because Paul couldn't make 6.
Yeah.
Paul, did you give us this Ways and Means thing?
I did,
Yes.
yeah.
I had a feeling you gave it to us. How come I knew that?
You know these things. With you, I handed out the Ways and Means, it's the estimated recommendations from the Mass Municipal Associations, and the monies that are recommended to be returned back to the districts, and it itemizes various things under the letter from the Mass Municipal Association, the Ways and Means Committee, for the fiscal year 15 state budget.
Didn't you send us an email?
I sent an email, but I printed it up for you, because
Because
I
I
sent
already
the link.
read it.
I sent you the link, so I
At least
wanted
in
to,
my
so thanks.
Yes. Are we almost ready? Close.
So the other thing with the budget, I think tomorrow you can't make the budget planning group, is that right? I would ask if it's okay with Jean, can you make it?
Yes.
So I'd like to appoint Jean as the representative from the school committee for the budget planning group for the meeting
As the
tomorrow
second
morning,
member
and
to
Paul can
make
make the
the
rest of
quorum.
it.
That sounds like a good idea.
So I'd like to appoint you. There you
Right.
go.
I'm appointed.
You're appointed, there you go. All right.
Are we almost done here?
We're getting there, yeah, we're getting there.
Bag.
Communication.
Bag.
Dave, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice to-
Thank you.
I know.
Thank
No,
you for
thank you for
listening.
doing all this work. It's important, because I think we have
Yeah,
a
it was good.
little ways to go.
Yes, a little bit.
Mrs. McGoldrick and I will report on communications together, simultaneously, standing up with a book and pictures, with a book and pictures, right?
No, we had Jean and I had the pleasure today of, in conjunction with the readathon, going to read books to the, first and second graders at Cohasset, which was a blast. Just
It
wonderful.
is.
So,
It's, it's a great, great thing. We love doing it, so. It was a well-spent lunch hour.
Yes.
Yeah, we had our first meeting about the John Smith Landing. It's a big deal. The whole town's gonna be involved. They expect lots and lots of people from, the South Shore and all over Boston area. It's gonna be September 13th, 2014. And, the schools are gonna be involved. That's where you appointed me last month. And so they have all kinds of ideas for the schools, but we're in the process of working that out. And, right now, that's the plan.
We've already had a discussion with the principals.
Correct. 'Cause,
Already,
they
so.
would like K through 12 involvement in things like essays and pictures and reenactments, and there's gonna be music and all kinds of, the whole town, politicians, and basically they want to expand and make more accurate the actual landing. Cause right now there's a sign that said that John Smith came and something like killed all of the Brayarians, and refer to the native people as barbarians and savages, so that's gonna change the world, quite a bit, actually. So, and, you know, Jackie Dormitzer and other people who are historians in our town are involved, and it's a really good group. It's run by the Historical Society, but they want the schools and they want a lot of the different, groups in town involved. And it's a great opportunity for us to have a town gown, school and town collaboration, especially as the budget appears, you know, and we're going through all these things in the coming years. And we want everybody's support to have the chance to have the town see what a valuable asset our school system is to the whole town. So I think it's a very positive thing they want our involvement.
Good. Anything else?
I think I sent you an email a week ago, or maybe two, but next Wednesday before the meeting at 6 o'clock is Recycle Art up in the cafeteria. And we will have an executive session at the end.
At the end of our meeting.
Yes.
Next week.
Yeah.
Not this week.
So start at 6, or well.
No, the art starts at 6, we start at 7, but just, it's really, the students are brilliant with what they do with recycling, that's the only reason why I mention it.
Yeah.
Well,
And the only thing from communication, I've just been trying to reach out to the town manager, and, to try to find out the final numbers of the budget, see what's available. Looking at a couple of things, the state numbers are quite good. I went to the advisory committee, yesterday?
Monday.
Yeah, and the chairman of the advisory committee said that the numbers were quite good for income, for revenue for the town, which I thought was delightful to hear from the advisory committee, so that's a nice thing to hear. So we'll see what the numbers are. The big item which is out there is the excise tax, which will be, the first major payment is due on the 7th, so that's required for current vehicles, so we'll have an idea on the 7th what monies will be available from excise tax. That does not include cars bought during the year. And there's a budget planning group tomorrow, which will be there.
Are those televised, Paul?
No.
Will be tomorrow, it's
will?
going to be in the Board
Oh,
of
because
Selectmen office.
you think it's going to be on TV then?
I was told it was, through the grapevine, but
They
it might
typically
be.
haven't been, even if they're in the Board of Selectmen's room.
Well, I was told it was upstairs.
Yeah, it is upstairs, yeah, that's what the agenda says for, so.
You recent. And also, as always.
From CPAC.
The next CPAC meeting is in March 4th at the Paul Pratt Library, 7 p.m. The topic is Transition Planning, Middle and High School Students on IEP into Adulthood. This is probably going to be one of the better meetings for parents when their kids are going through and developing what to do when they go on into high school and middle school. It's a very good program. It was, I think, a year ago or a year before, had something similar that I went to, and it is terrific because parents don't realize what the changes will be with kids when they go on to the next level.
And their students are now involved in their IEP process.
Yeah.
So you need to be educated so you can help
I
your
just went
child.
off now, I just happened to. Alright, anything else? Diane's sending her excise pay. And next up is, resignation letter.
Yes, in your envelope is a resignation letter, which I can't put my hand on. Thank you. I have only 10 of them in here, but, Michelle Fonfield, who is, as you can see, the Metco ESP, the assistant, she is resigning because she has accepted a teaching job in Boston. So we posted her position already. I'm not sure there'll be somebody hired before she departs, but.
Thursday's the last day.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow's the last day, so we're not sure somebody will be hired. Posting, I believe, won't even close till Friday, and then after that, Alicia Gittens-Carr will begin to do the interviews and make some decisions. Be hard to replace her.
I'm just curious, what do they do about a bus monitor if she's not going to be there?
They'll get a substitute.
They will,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, temporarily, they'll have substitutes.
don't have anybody permanent yet.
Okay, anyone else? There's no need to go into executive session as of now, that's kind of anything else? Okay, I ask for a motion to adjourn the, February 26th.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the session at 9:45 or 10 to 10.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, everybody.
Great job.
Thank you.
Great job. A lot of hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your support.
Your
ideas.
I have to get out so early.
We're objective eyes, right? We're not supposed to.
Sometimes we just have our head down.